Coming up, actor, director, writer, and producer from Australia, Nate Hill, is going to be on this show. We're going to be talking about his most recent film, Alien Love, which we did review on a recent blog post or episode, or review on the site. But yeah, we'll talk about that mostly. We're also going to talk about a few of his other movies, Jasper, Revenge of the Gweilo, Lady Terror, and really great conversation. We just talk about kind of the movie industry overall, his experience in the movie industry in Australia and in America. All that's a really great conversation we have with Nate here. So stay tuned for that. We'll do that in just a bit. One thing I do want to note, something happened because we recorded on Skype, and for some reason maybe because we were using video as well as audio. I don't know what it was, but for some reason it cut the segments into two segments. And so a little bit of it is lost. So when you listen to it, you'll hear like a little bit of a blip twice, I think, where it kind of cuts from one thing to another. You're not missing much. Just keep in mind there, you're not really missing anything with that. It's just sort of how Skype decided to cut that off. But yeah, so just, stay tuned in a few minutes. We'll have that. So again, really great conversation. Thanks again to Nate for coming on. Hopefully have him on again soon, probably when his next movie comes out. But a lot of fun there. Now, you're probably wondering, last week, right, I was saying that this episode was going to have John Cross from After Movie Diner on, and we're going to look at two Harry Hamlin erotic thrillers. Well, what happened was when I had him on, it was last week. The episode went long. It was probably a good 4.5 hours, and so my thought was, why don't I split it into two episodes? And of course, this week, right? Because I would do two episodes, maybe like a Tuesday, Thursday kind of deal, but. Obviously, this week I wouldn't be able to do Thursday because this week we're doing the last two Rambo movies. So I was thinking next week would be better for it. Well, the other thing is when he was on, I said, that episode we're going to do is going to air on, or I'm going to post it on election night, and we kind of talked about some of that stuff. Of course, none of that stuff is relevant that we talked about now. I don't even know, how much. It might even be a little dramatic for both of us to listen to it, to know kind of based on what the results are. So I may just cut it down. It might just be one episode, but. Keep an eye out for that next week. So we'll be looking at two Harry Hamlin erotic thrillers. We're looking at Save Me and Deceptions. So plan on that for next week. And then in 2 weeks, Ty from Comeuppets is on. And for his monthly hit, we'll be looking at King of the Killers and the Chuck Norris movie, Agent Recon. So that will be coming up in 2 weeks. And then, again, like I just mentioned, later this week. So you notice we're a day off here. So again, I didn't really have the energy. It didn't quite work out for me posting our episode last night based on kind of stuff that was happening here in the U.S. So posting this episode on Wednesday instead of a Tuesday, and then we'll do the DTVC Extra on Friday. So look for that on Friday evening, my time, probably, maybe early in the morning, depending on where in the world you are. And again, we'll be looking at Rambo and then Rambo Last Blood for that one. And we'll finish off Rambo there, and then we'll kind of see who we do next, whether we do Beverly Hills Cop or if we do the Resident Evil movies. But yeah, keep an eye out for that. In terms of the site, we're going to start looking at those 2000s DTV sequels to late 90s thrillers. So we'll be looking at Cruel Intentions 2 this Saturday, or this weekend. Next weekend, we'll be looking at Wild Things 2. We'll do Wild Things 2. And then the week after that, we'll look at Single White Female 2, The Psycho, I think it's called, or The Psycho Killer, something like that, The Psycho. We're looking at that one in 3 weeks. And then after that, we'll kind of finish off the month of November with Skulls 2. So a couple of Robin Dunns. We're going to kind of bookend those Robin Dunn movies, right, with Cruel Intentions 2 this weekend, and then finish the month with Skulls 2, which also has Mr. Dunn in it. So those were fun to watch, I got to say. So I'm kind of looking forward to writing these, and I'm looking forward to having people read these, and we'll see what happens there. Now one other kind of, I guess, administrative thing, is that the way to say it? But I'm not going to be on Twitter going forward. I'm going to keep my account open, but I'm not really going to be going on there looking at things. Big reason why is that pretty much everybody who I follow on Twitter is on either Facebook or Instagram. And so I can kind of, and to be fair, Facebook is getting a lot more engagement than anything else. But, Instagram's kind of a close second there with that. And so I'm looking at Blue Sky. So we just started a Blue Sky account. It is DTV Connoisseur .bsky.social. So look for us there. I'm going to have that also in the podcast description here. So you can follow us on Blue Sky if you want. I know, I think Will from Exploding Helicopters is already on there, and Doug Tilley, Boner Vivant, he's on there. So a few people are already over there, but we'll be there. So look for us there. So if you want updates and things like that, again, I'll probably post more updates on Facebook than anywhere else, just because, again, that seems to be where the bulk of the engagement is. It seems like anybody who would see something on Twitter or Instagram is probably going to see it on Facebook too. So that's where most things will be. But again, I'll be using kind of getting see what happens here with Blue Sky as well. But yeah, I think that is everything. So what we'll do is we'll have John Cross from After Movie Diner play in our theme song, and then when we come back, Nate Hill will be on. We'll be talking about his movie Alien Love. All right, welcome back to the DTVC podcast. As always, this is Matt here, and I am joined by a very special guest. I've got Nate Hill, a writer, director, producer, and an actor from Melbourne, Australia. Welcome, Nate.
Thanks so much, Matty. Great to see you, man. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's good to see you as well. I see you're wearing a Dodgers cap. They just won the World Series. So it's always good. Yeah, I'm originally from Boston, and so I was rooting for the Dodgers a bit because they have Mookie Betts, who is a big player for the Red Sox. So yeah, I don't know.
Gotcha.
Are you able to watch? Because I guess that's got to be very early in the morning, right? If it's for those games.
Yeah, time zones, it's always been an issue. And the funny thing is, like, I'll wake up in the middle of the night where I'm at, which is Melbourne, Australia, because I feel like my body clock is kind of America. It's kind of weird. Like, I'm awake and I check my phone and, I've got all these messages from mates in America. I'm like, what am I doing? It's like I'm living a double life or something crazy.
Right. I can imagine. Yes, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Because I guess so it's 11 a.m. your time, it's 8 p.m. my time. And so then if somebody is in Los Angeles, it would be like 5 p.m. my time and 11 a.m. your time. Yeah, so it's even, it's like they're like coming home from work or something, at that time.
Back in the old days, you'd have like a clock on the wall, like old school clocks with all different time zones, so I could just look up from my desk and see, what time it was in Asia or America. And now obviously it's all on your phone and just scroll through. But I think I would probably spend every day checking time zones somewhere to talk to someone, around the world or the UK. Lately, it's been the UK quite a bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, especially because with the film industry, it's like you're getting movies all over the world, and it's like, I mean, so imagine in Australia, is Melbourne the bigger of the two cities between Melbourne and Sydney for movies? Is that?
To be honest, it's more Sydney. So Melbourne's kind of referred to as a jack of all trades, master of nothing, because you can dabble in a bit of everything. You can sing, you can dance, you can act, you can paint, you can whatever. Sydney, because it's got Fox Studios, is a bit more of the mecca. I think the direct flight to LA had always been that way. They've only recently opened up, direct flights from Melbourne to LA, which is about 18 hours. I did that flight recently myself. Nice. Nearly killed me in economy. I don't think I'll be doing an economy ever again. So I think with Fox Studios, you might have 2 to 3 films shooting at once, whereas in Melbourne, you've got Dockland Studios, which is normally 1 film at a time. I think they may come down here if Sydney's full. And Warner Brothers Queensland, it's a bit, because it's a theme park, it's more like 1 film maybe a year. It's a little bit more sort of holiday orientated. So I think probably Sydney's the mecca. I mean, that's where you had Matrix and Star Wars and Great Gatsby, and Melbourne's a bit more sort of art indie. We had Queen of the Damned, which is where I started out, and at the moment it's War Machine. I think that's probably an accurate description.
Yeah, I was trying to think. I think it was because you mentioned Fox, right? I think some of the X-Men movies, right, would be filmed in Australia. And I think some of the Marvel ones too, right? Like the Avengers or stuff would be filmed partly in Australia.
I'm actually not too sure about that. I'd have to look a bit deeper. Maybe I was off the radar when that happened. But certainly, like, if it's a big film, I've always had the sort of I guess, idea that if, Paramount's slated 12 films this year and they've got room for 10, where do they do those other two? If will they go to the UK? If not, maybe they'll go to Australia, because it's sometimes, I mean, it's half price. I mean, the dollar right now is, I think, 68 cents to the dollar, but some back in the day it was even 50. It was 50. So
Yeah.
you're shooting a movie at half price, particularly if it's like studio based. It's like, well, we can shoot anywhere. We've just got to take our leads. We had Ricky Stenicki with Zac Efron and John Cena
Oh,
at the
right.
start of the year, I watched the film, and I literally knew every single person, including the extras, bar them,
Right.
because it was local and it
Yeah.
was a studio piece. So yeah, just business demographics, I guess, and how it's going to be set up and shot.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, one of the things I didn't mention this to you ahead of time, but one of the things I loved about your movies, even like Lady Terror was the first one I saw. I think that you mentioned about me
Cool.
reviewing, and I'll get to a little bit later how I didn't get the humor in it right away, which I think is just an
Yep.
American thing where we,
Yeah.
if humor's too subtle, we
That's
don't
awesome.
always get it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
But
awesome.
but the thing I loved is that, I think in America we're always sold Australia as like, whether it's Crocodile Dundee or it's like this idea of like this big quirky place that like,
Yeah.
and your movies, people, even if there's things happening, obviously there's sort of
Mm, mm,
outstanding things happening in the movie, or bigger than the larger than life things happening in the movie, but the
mm,
characters are doing things like just going to work or going to,
mm,
and
mm,
it's
mm,
almost
mm.
like, I don't know if
A
that's
day in the
something.
life.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
it's like it's a part of it. I think most of the world is kind of like that. It's almost like if you make a movie, it has to be how crazy is this part of the world, as opposed to, oh yeah, people, there's apartments and houses. Not everybody's like living in the outback.
Correct. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a really good point you raised,
Yeah.
because most of the filmmakers I've grown up with, they've always talked about how beautiful the city is and how kind of unused it is.
Yeah.
So one of the landmarks I kind of had, or let's say one of the key elements to my movies, was always, let's showcase another part of the city.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a photo album, and like I can go back now and look at some, like if I look at my first film where I shot in the storm drains of a
Right.
suburb, which doesn't exist anymore. Now it's a
Yeah.
freeway. So
Oh,
over
wow.
time you can actually go back, it's almost like a photo album, and see these landmarks develop.
Yeah.
But you're right, it's sort of, I guess it's showcasing pieces of Melbourne that people may never have seen or didn't know exist. And you're absolutely right, that impression, and I've got it as well. I've got an impression of, what Ireland is like, and I've never been to Ireland, but I've got an idea. I'm sure when I get there it'll be different. But we get these stereotypes that stick. I mean, credit to Paul Hogan with Crocodile Dundee kind of putting us on the map and using all those archetypes that we have here, which is unique, which may have, I guess, enticed an overseas audience, almost like a sale, if you will, of like who we are, what we are, and some people dig it and some people don't. But I guess my stuff, which you've tapped in on, is more about the day-to-day man, and the I guess the common denominator that you and I have, and the dramas that we could potentially get into, no matter which country you're in, that's probably been colonized. Like,
Right. Yes.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point too.
To
Yeah.
put it bluntly.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
because you see, I mean, like a Jasper's one that of yours that I watched recently, and I mean, it's just a lot of freeways, things like
Yeah.
suburbs and things like that that just
Mm.
yeah, that's just like and it's I mean, I think of a movie like Animal Kingdom that
Oh
was
yeah.
popular here,
Good film.
and and of course that's a very dark movie, and it's about people robbing banks and things like that. So it was a really
Yeah.
great movie. Um, but at least that was like a part of Australia that like I was like, okay, this is not Crocodile Dundee, or it's not like common thing.
Yeah.
What was it? Hurricane Jones? I can't remember the name. It was
Oh
the
yeah.
Carl Weathers movie. Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
right,
yeah, absolutely.
right.
That's actually probably a movie I watched before I made my last film. Definitely, man. That what you've touched on, that kind of that indie sort of action thriller genre, because I love films that are realistic. Like I love Heat. I love
Yeah,
seeing it and going, I'm there. I can feel
yeah,
the street. I can almost smell the sweat. It's um I love location.
yeah,
Studio to me is a bit sterile. I think because I've watched so many films, and you're the same. It's studio. The
yeah,
suspension of disbelief is kind of a little bit gone. And now, just with social media, you've seen the BTS and the behind the scenes way before the films come out. It's almost like you've seen the whole movie. You go in kind of like, oh yeah, okay, well, what happens? You're just connecting dots because you've been fed so much marketing material, and I kind of feel like that goes away from the miss on the scene or the suspension of disbelief. And so a lot of mature age men, probably in our age range, actually have said, oh, I love your movies because I can relate to them because I feel like it could be me. And I said, that's exactly right. I loved watching Jason Statham films once upon a time because I felt like this was an ordinary guy who, boom, all of a sudden had these martial arts skills. But take out the martial arts, it could be you and I, the situation that he's in. And I love that, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, you think of like movies, like film noir in the 30s and 40s. I mean, yes, some of
Mm,
them, Humphrey Bogart, maybe you can't be Sam Spade, but other ones,
yep.
Double Indemnity. It's like, yeah, anybody can be caught in
Yeah.
those situations. Yeah,
Yep.
and I think that, like, I mean, that was the thing with Lady Terror that I
Mm,
think, for all the tongue in cheek aspects of it that I
mm,
missed,
mm.
the character that you were playing in that was, just like kind of, okay, he's in a bad relationship. I
Yep.
think you had mentioned earlier you're trying to depict COVID, where he's kind of just having to go from place to place and
Yeah.
can't really do anything.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so
See,
then he,
and I got. Sorry to cut you off, but
oh, sorry.
I got picked on for that. I got picked on because they said, oh, half the movie spent with him walking to and from the car. But that was intentional because I wanted people to feel the frustration of that guy's life, because that's what his life was. It was just
Right.
going from one place to another, and that frustration was a real thing. That was what I did it intentionally.
Yeah.
So it kind of worked because people are like, oh, I can't stand this. I'm like, but that's what I was going for.
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
a
because
catch 22.
yeah, well, because part of why that I missed it the first time was because COVID was a little different here in Philadelphia, where
True,
my
true.
wife and I don't drive, so it was kind of just more
Mm,
like walking places. But then
true.
also we had the 2020 election was this huge thing, and then we had the Black Lives Matter protests that were also involved with
Absolutely.
looters, and so it was a different. But when you mention it like that, I was like, well, that makes a lot of sense that that character is stuck in this sort of mundane thing with COVID where he can't go
Like
out
The
and
Sims, it was like The
yeah,
Sims. You could
right,
look at him from a
exactly,
bird's eye view and see this guy
yeah,
going dot to dot to dot dot to dot,
yes.
and kind of driving him mad, and then he goes mad,
Right.
and
Yes.
and that was, yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because when I first saw Lady Terror, and maybe we'll get into this one here, because
Mm,
I when I first saw it, I was like, I've seen so many low budget movies that are done completely in earnest, and so I
sure.
was watching it, and I thought the whole thing was in earnest. And then I think you interviewed with Jay Harang about it,
Oh yeah,
and
Jay, love him.
Jay, yeah, and you were going over some of the things that were funny, that were jokes, and I was like, so, and it was almost kind of like almost like kind of hit myself in the head, like of course these were jokes. Like, why did I think these were serious? Like when the stepfather character, when your character kills him off. I mean, it's
Yeah,
I watched it, I was
it
like,
was
well,
almost
why am I supposed to
hysterical.
root for this guy who killed
Yeah,
his stepfather? But the whole
yeah,
thing was a joke. It's like, and when I see it
it's
as a joke, it's like,
crazy.
right, exactly. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so
That
for people,
that actually was funny because that got in the at the premiere, that got the biggest laugh. I think
yeah,
when the car exploded. Um, and yeah, look, it's a fine line you're walking because you make these low budgets and you are serious, but you've also got to laugh at yourself because it's low budget.
right,
And it's interesting hearing you say that, because the translation from what the movie is to the audience, I think you're right. A lot of my stuff's been misinterpreted because it sets out as, oh, this is serious. He's trying to compete with the big boys, but I'm kind of not. I already know I'm not. So then it becomes a little bit tongue in cheek. So yeah, it's a really fine line, and that's what a lot of my reviews are like. They're either like a 9 or a 2. It's like they hated it because they hired it when they watch Transformers, right? It's like
right,
it's not in the same ballpark. But
yeah,
if you were watching 90s thrillers on Tubi, then it fits in. It's like, oh, it's one of those.
right,
So I'm kind of almost going back in a time capsule, and I think it's probably uh, relative to me not wanting to move so much with the times, because I'm not a DC Marvel guy. I'm not, my head's just not there. So the films I really love, they're kind of not making as much anymore. So it's almost a passion project. It's me saying, oh, but I miss that genre of film. And I mean, Tarantino did that. That's what he reinvented an era, the golden era for him, which is probably 70s, but obviously on a grand scale. And the guy's a legend. Um, but yeah, I love that the romanticism. You know, I mean, they called me the Renaissance man at one point. It was for that reason. You know,
Right. Well,
yeah,
because Lady Terror is definitely like I went into it with like, okay, this is a '90s, kind of erotic thriller type deal,
yeah,
and it definitely hit those marks. But I think to your point, like one of the things that's great about the tongue-in-cheek approach to it is that I think it sort of mitigates some of the low budget problems that you run into. Like, for example, with your
that's it.
cast, the actors a lot
That's
of
it.
times, you see on the page that they don't have, headshots that they're kind of,
Yep.
they're getting the hang of acting. They're still, they're maybe not as
True.
seasoned, but if they're playing it
True.
straight, even if the dialogue is quirky or goofy or anything, if they play it straight, it all works perfect. But it also kind of helps too that, like, if the dialogue has some quirks or some goofiness to it, that's kind of more the focus, as opposed to if they miss the line or
Yeah.
they're having trouble like being serious or something like that.
You're absolutely right. And a mate of mine who's in LA said to me just recently after he'd watched Alien Love, he just said, "Man, I just love these actresses that you put in your films because they're good and they're funny, and you probably wouldn't see them in any other way, you know." Like, so I just saw a comment. Someone said recently, "Oh, where do I see Ira Chakraborty?" You know, and I'm like, I feel like the cast I choose are real gems, you know, and they're people that when I meet them or when I audition them, I'm like, geez, I'd love to see you in more stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and like with Felida from Lady Terror, you know, she did another feature and now she's up for an award. I think she's gone to Venice or something, or Athens. And I thought, oh wow, okay, good. You know, I sort of backed a winning horse there.
Yeah.
You know, I'm casting people much like myself, where I feel like they've kind of been a little bit underused. They haven't had the marketing budget or the proper managerial backing to get into that next level. You know, we're sort of somewhere between indie and commercial. It's sort of, you know, brushing up against it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that to your point, like the names that, like you said, like, like when I think of, I mean, my favorite of yours, I think was Revenge of the Gweilo, but I think it's because I'm
Oh
an
yeah.
action fan, and I
Love it.
mean, and so definitely there's a lot of great over the top performances in that one, but
Oh yeah.
and I think it's probably the thing. I mean, Lady Terror. The other one we talked about, Lady Terror. I think you were talking with Jay about was Anton, who looks like Danny
Yeah.
Trejo, who plays
Like
the
Danny Trejo.
stepfather,
Yeah.
right? Yes, and so
That's
it's
right.
like,
I
yeah,
mean, I was, you know, sometimes I remember when I was a kid, you'd go in the video store and you'd grab a VHS cover and
yeah,
you'd think it was this actor, and you'd go home and play the tape to discover it wasn't. And it was a very tricky, you know, marketing trick where you'd just go, oh, it's, you know, it's Liam Neeson, or it's Danny Trejo, or it's,
right,
you know, or it's Sean Connery, and you go, no, it's not. And
right,
when I met this guy, I thought, if I put his face on the cover, they're just going to assume it's a Danny Trejo movie.
right.
And a mate of mine in LA, Marty, he had done a film called Zombie Hunter with Danny Trejo,
Oh,
and it was around about that time, so it was in my mind, and I
yeah.
thought, I'll do it to stir him up, you know, see if I can trick him. So it was all a bit of a game, but yeah, he easily could play his double or brother. And
Yeah.
it was perfect for that film, having that face in that role as the villain. That was brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, probably with him, you get more screen time than you would Danny Trejo, right? You get him for more
Yeah,
days, right? Yeah,
exactly,
right.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
expensive.
right. Yeah, I don't know if Danny Trejo would do a scene where you were able to kind of carry, not quite carry him, but bring him to the car like that. Yeah, throw him
Yeah,
in the back seat there. Yeah,
I
you're
think you're
right.
right. There'd be sort of boundaries and limits
Right.
to what you could do, and
Yeah.
that's actually a good point you raised, because when I do these low budget indies, you kind of you can get away with murder. You can do whatever you want because everyone's in the same kind of playing field. They're
Yeah.
up for it,
Yeah.
and there's not real no, I think probably when I'm auditioning, you know, you'll look for red flags. You know, if
Yeah.
someone's not going to gel, you'll kind of spot it straight away, and you won't cast them. Yeah, you've got to be careful. In this day and age, too, you know, the whole woke thing and the political correctness, and you know, it gets very tricky sometimes with what I'm wanting to do in the film. So yeah, it takes someone that's got some guts. I think Trisha Devisha in Gweilo, who played Ishtar,
Oh, yes.
is one of the best actresses I've worked with, who just basically will take the gloves off and go berserk. And I just love that attitude, because I was told in drama school that, you know, the actor has to be the sponge, you know, you have to be open to the process. And what I find now is well, I wouldn't say every, but every second actress I meet has a list of what they do and don't do. And I just don't feel like that's acting. I feel like that's modeling and kind of micromanaging your image,
Yeah.
but it's not actually getting into a character. So
Yeah.
that's really obvious to me, you know. And sometimes I cast models because I think they look great on screen, but if they can't act, I'm out. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want that attitude around me. It's just that belongs on the catwalk. You know, sort of get out of acting. You know, don't go
Right.
away. You know, like
Yeah,
so.
because like her performance in Original the Gweilo, I mean, that's like Bai kind of, like that's what you would, yeah,
Exactly. Yes,
yeah,
exactly. And it's funny you said that because I was offered a co-producer gig on a biling film just after Gweilo,
oh, yeah,
which I didn't follow up because I was too busy. But it was interesting she came into my orbit because that's exactly how I see Trish. And I've talked to Bailing a couple of times online. She's pretty cool. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I thought, yeah, yeah. I mean, and like you said, like I think, like you said, list of things that an actor won't or won't do. I mean, I think I can understand like
Mm,
certain things, like maybe not wanting to be nude or anything like that. But I
sure.
think like to play a part and say like, okay, I'm going to like it's like yeah,
Mm,
like her part or something like that. Like yeah,
mm,
it's
mm,
because again with kind of low budget indie stuff, it's almost
mm,
kind of like you said, sometimes it can be more of a blank canvas where you can kind of
mm.
do more with it. Like you're not trying to be big tentpole about it, right? Like you don't have Marvel studio head over you saying,
Yeah.
no, you can't say that, you can't do that.
Oh, even, you probably saw online, my favorite film is The Lost Boys. I
Yeah,
just discovered recently that Jamie Gertz did a full nude scene with Jason Patrick in that, which they shot, but they didn't put in the cut.
right.
So I just feel like I don't know, man. What's on the page, what's rehearsed, and what ends up in the final cut, it could be three different things.
Yeah,
I remember when I got the audition for Queen of the Damned, and in the questionnaire, it specifically said, will you perform nude? And I sort of paused and ummed and ahed, and I thought, God, I really don't want to go nude, right?
right.
But I ticked the box. It was more of a jumping off place,
Yeah,
and then I got cast, and I never appeared nude. The whole
right,
point was, is this guy all in? You know what I
right.
mean? Like sometimes it's
Yeah,
psychological. And because if you get someone go, oh God, no, I'm tick the box. Oh no, I'm out of here. It's like,
right,
okay, well, go back to retail or whatever you were doing.
right,
So yeah, I
right.
think there's a lot of games. I think it gets a little bit psychological, and it's trying to push boundaries, see where someone's at. Kind of what's their limits and what's the script calling for, and is it for them? I mean, let's look at a movie like Fatal Attraction.
Yeah,
With Glenn Close, have a look at what she did. Which is
yeah,
one of my favorite films. I mean, talking about taking the gloves off. I mean,
right.
that's Basic Instinct. That's another one of my favorites. Um, that's just what I grew up with, and if you look at any filmmaker, I mean, let's go back to Spielberg. He grew up with Lawrence of Arabia. Have a look at how many films he shot in the desert after that. So you've
Right.
got, I think you've got to look at the person, the demographic, their nationality, their age, what they grew up with, what influenced them in their first 10 years of life. I was really lucky. The first film I ever saw at the drive-in was Flash Gordon.
Oh yeah.
And a couple of years ago, I got to meet Sam Jones. I was like, wow,
Nice.
this guy was a hero on my wall. Now I've shaken my hand, and I've even kept in touch with him online, which is
Yeah,
amazing. So, and he's a blonde haired lead with, and now because I've gone back and analyzed the film and
yeah,
tried to look at what seeped into my kind of limbic
yeah,
system subconscious, and it's a blonde
yeah.
lead with a brunette, but then there's also a third woman who's somewhat sort of Eurasian,
Right.
and I kind of pondered that and went, that's interesting because a lot of my films have got this triangle. Maybe it was
Right.
Flash Gordon we can blame, like
Yes. Right,
it's
because
funny,
yeah,
man.
that's a great point. And I was say too, Sam Jones shaking your hand. I imagine he has a huge hand, right? Because he's just
Oh,
like
huge. Yeah,
massive,
he's a
right?
giant. And in 1980, I mean, he must have been a giant because,
Yeah,
when you go back, the actors or people, they
right.
get shorter, so
Yeah,
um because we're evolving, we're getting bigger as people. Like kids now are 6'5". That's like the average. But he
yeah,
must have been a giant back in 1980, and as a
yeah.
ex-football player and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, yeah, that's a great point because I'm trying to think for myself. Like, I just recently watched the Rambo movies. And
So did I, man. I went
did
back
you?
too.
Oh,
Yeah, I
did you?
went back
That's
just
awesome.
recently. I watched 1, 2, and 3.
Did you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
same here.
recently. Yeah,
Oh,
love
nice,
it.
excellent. Yeah,
Love
because I
it.
do like a solo podcast where I'll do like kind of like non-direct to video movies, and so I was watching those ones because they just happen
Love
to
it.
all be on. Yeah, and I think it's the second one, First
Mm,
Blood Part 2, because I think
the
the
best.
first one ended up like I saw that one when the third one came out. They played it on TV here in the
Mm,
States, and that's how I saw that one. But I saw First Blood Parts 2 before that. And I think it is, it's like I hadn't seen it in maybe 30 years. And I
yeah,
didn't realize how much of that movie like influenced like what I
influenced.
yeah, it's like, it's
Yeah.
just like what I'd written this short novel about this character Bainbridge, and he
Mm,
used a bow and arrow, trained,
mm.
special forces in them and all that stuff. And I realized like, yeah, it was all just it's kind of just subconsciously in my head from
You're
Rambo or from
you're
First
absolutely
Blood.
right. And it's funny you said that too, because I told you I bumped into Martin Cove last
Oh yeah,
night, and they talked a bit about him being in Rambo 2
yeah,
and what that experience was like. And I was exactly the same as you. I think one of the first short stories that I wrote in school, maybe like even grade 5, grade 6, was a Rambo story.
yeah,
And I didn't realize I was the way I wrote it was in a screenplay format, and the teacher didn't know what I was doing. She was like, "This isn't a short story. This is," and I said, "Hang on, this is, oh my god, this is a script." It was just the way my brain was
right,
working. But the same as you, that influence, and it was only a few years earlier where an actor said, I saw him online. He was talking about my films, and he said Nathan's kind of like a Stallone, where he makes his own stuff.
yeah,
And some people love it, some people hate it. I don't give a shit. It's success any which way you look at it. And I was like, oh my god, I've made it. I think when I heard that, I said, oh my god, thank
yeah,
God he said that, because
yeah,
yeah, I think you're right. Like these heroes have such a big impact, and it's so healthy to have heroes. I think the young men of today, they don't have as many heroes as you and I did, and which is kind of sad. It's a different world. It's a
yeah,
digital world. There's more information. So, and it's just like with casting, there's just so many people. It's sometimes you lose the needle in the haystack. It's hard to
yeah,
find the talent up against all the image.
yeah.
You know, but I think you and I were lucky because we had real heroes.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned about the digital piece because that's another point too that I always kind of forget that I was reading in your IMDb bio that you worked in a
Mm.
video store, and it's
Mm,
like
mm, mm, mm.
that experience of going into it, especially like if it was an independent video store, and maybe you're looking for Rambo and they're out,
Yep.
so you got to find something else, and you just start
Yep.
picking something else out,
And then
and it,
you grab Missing in Action with Chuck
right,
Norris.
exactly, exactly. That's everyone, right, exactly. You find these other ones, but you're right. Like it was kind of it was like a tangible thing. It was like like with Stallone with Rambo. Like I wasn't thinking like I want to go out and
Yeah, and
like
shoot people.
shoot
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
I was thinking I want to
But you
tell
want to,
stories like that.
yeah,
Right. Yeah.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
it's inspiring,
Yeah.
because and he's such a giant, in cinema,
Yeah.
and it's just healthy. I mean, I mean, I don't want to get like sort of flip the switch here and get all religious, but if you go to church, Jesus is the hero. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
In the
Yes.
story, he
Right.
self-sacrifices for mankind, and that image. And it's funny now because I've been looking at male leads recently, and I have and the image. This is a. I don't think anyone said this online. You and I might be hopefully we get a spike from just this line. Hopefully we can get some traction. But what I've been noticing is if you look at all the male lead stereotypes at the moment, they look like Jesus. They're brown haired, Caucasian with a beard and the hair.
Yeah.
It's exactly that iconic
Yeah.
image.
John Wick. I mean,
Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's like
yeah.
it's Jesus Christ, and um, it's interesting. It's very interesting. I love, because I'm blonde. I love Daniel Craig. He's my
Yeah.
favorite Bond. When I saw James Bond as a blonde, I was like, yes, finally.
Right. Yeah.
Because the blonde guy is always the sidekick who gets killed first.
Yeah.
I also love Cobra Kai because of William Zabka, because he's the
Yes.
blonde lead is back. So
Yes.
and I loved Corey Haim. Before
Yeah.
he passed away, he was another
Yeah.
blonde lead.
Yeah.
That's just my kind of flavor. But yeah, it's interesting looking at the current image of today, and comparing it to the image of Jesus Christ. I think there's something in it.
Yeah, you make a great point because I never considered, because I was someone who grew up reading comic books, so I've kind of gone to some more of the comic book movies, and obviously like Chris Evans with the Captain America, he's
Mm,
clean shaven Captain America character. But
mm,
yeah, even like Robert Downey Jr., right? I mean, his hair is not
yep,
longer, but he's got the beard, he's
he's
got
got
the
that look.
features. Yeah, that's a fascinating thing because yeah, because it Stallone, I think, was kind of the only one who had darker hair and darker features
Mm,
at the time, right? Because I mean, Schwarzenegger, someone
yep,
like a Dolph Lundgren, obviously, but
that's
even
true.
like Bruce Willis when he comes
Or
along
Van
later,
Damme.
Van
Yeah.
Damme, yeah, and even
Yep.
Seagal, like he didn't have a beard,
Yep.
he
Seagal,
got
it
the
was a
goatee
slick
later,
back.
but Right,
Yep.
exactly. Yeah, and so
Totally.
Stallone's Rambo is kind of the only one who really had those,
Mm.
because even his Rocky didn't look like that. It was really just Rambo that had those features. But now you're right. Like,
Mm.
it seems like
Mm.
every direct-to-video action movie, it's some character with a
Mm.
beard, and the hair
Yeah.
might be longer, but it depending. But they definitely, dark hair with a beard.
And I think the older they get too, I think you mentioned Keanu Reeves. I
Yeah,
think if you take the beard off, which he might have done in the new Bill and Ted's, you can kind of
yeah,
see his age. I
right.
think
Yeah,
the beard does hide a little bit of age as
yeah,
well. And I think, and you look at Tom Cruise, like he's always had the longer hair. I think
yeah.
longer hair also takes away some of
Right.
the age. I mean,
Yes.
imagine if Cruise had, a buzz cut and was clean shaven, he might look very different. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing. I've got nothing against it. We want to look as young as we can, as long as we can, and hopefully
Yeah.
without Botox.
Right. Yes. Right.
But there's an image to uphold there. But I
Yeah.
do like Russell Crowe because he kind of, Mark Wahlberg described him as, and he's Mr. Boston. He
Yes.
described
Exactly. Yes.
Crowe as, the man's man, and I kind of like that because Crow got to a point where I was like, Jesus, he's not kind of caring about his image, and
Yeah.
where's he going to end up? And then boom, all these roles as an exorcist and as a
Yeah.
detective, and and his kind of career's peaked again, and I really respect that because he's saying I'm me, and I'm
Yeah.
going to find the role for me, and I don't kind of give a shit how you want to market that, and I like Unhinged, you know,
Yeah.
brilliant, man, brilliant, and that's to me, that's acting.
Yes.
That's not franchise.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and I think that's the problem, right? It's like you look at someone like James McAvoy. I haven't
Mm.
seen the movie he did recently, the one in Spain where it's what's it called? Don't Speak, or
Oh
can't
yeah,
remember, but yeah, I
I
haven't
haven't
seen
seen
that
it.
one. No,
Mm.
but he looks great in it. But I mean, like you said, that's not something that's like they put it in the theaters, but it's not
Mm.
like him being, Professor X and the X-Men
Mm.
movies, which is a big
Mm.
franchise thing. But I almost think too, for someone like a McAvoy, maybe, Crow too, but like, they do those
Yep.
Marvel movies, I think, so they can do the low budget ones where maybe they don't get paid as much for them. It's almost like I
Yeah.
can, sort of, take, do that. But yeah, I mean, McAvoy's another one, or Fassbender, who's also in the X-Men movies. Like, I love
Fassbender,
seeing
yeah.
them in all kinds of stuff. I
Yep.
love, all the different stuff they do.
The only thing that annoys me though is like you've seen now Downey Jr.'s going to be is he going to be Doctor
Right, he's gonna be
Doom?
Doctor Doom. He's gonna be bad. Yeah,
But I'm like, but how can you be Doom and Iron Man in the same
right.
universe? It kind of really bugs me.
Yeah,
And I know that like there's so much talent, and I know it's dollars, and I know it's box office, I know how it works, but surely we could have got someone else. There's a
yeah,
billion actors, and I love um oh God, what's his name? He did Witcher, Superman. I'm drawing a blank.
Cavill,
Um, yeah,
Cavill,
Cavill. Yeah,
Henry Cavill, Cavill. Yeah,
Cavill.
yeah,
He's awesome.
yeah,
But like, okay, he's been Superman. He's been Witcher. Now there's a rumor he could be the new Bond.
yeah,
That I could probably almost stomach because I think Bond you have to have like done a lot.
yeah.
It's like, okay, I've done this ABC to get to D, but like the same guy playing another hero in a translated universe it's too much. And I
Right.
feel like there's so many actors they need to spread the love.
Yeah.
And I think like kids won't care, but I think adults kind of get a bit over it, you know.
Yeah, and that's part of it. And I think also too with the consolidation. So it's like, okay, so Disney owns all of these comic book properties. So
Yep.
they're only going to put out so many at a time. So it's like if all these characters that could be there for all these actors, but they get shelved, it's like
Yep.
Oscar Isaac plays, Moon Knight in a movie or at a TV series. He's never going to get used again. They're just going to
Mm,
shelve that character and they may never use them, or they,
crazy. Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, I think it's the other thing I love about, indie films, and I love about, with Tubi, where, like directors like yourself can get your movies
Yep.
seen on there,
Yep.
is that you can get some variety out of that, because it is like
Mm,
one of those things where
mm,
like the studios, because they've been so consolidated. I mean, we talk about, in
mm,
the 80s, if you look at like the top 10 films of any given year in the 80s, I mean, you see
mm,
something like
mm,
Orion Pictures having top 10
mm.
films, or
Oh
United
yeah,
Artists.
I love
You know,
Orion. Yeah.
yeah, you would never see a company like Orion having a top 10 movie of the year
Mm,
anymore,
mm.
And the movies you see
Yeah.
that are top 10s too. I mean, Dead Poets Society, I think, was a top 10 earner in
Oh yeah.
1989. That kind of a movie would never be a top 10 earner anymore. So I think that's one of the things that's
Yeah.
kind of frustrating about the film industry, is it's so consolidated.
Yeah, and I think with overflow of content and the platforms. The thing that people complain to me about is, I want to watch one film that's on Netflix, I want to watch one film that's on Binge, I want to watch one film that's on Amazon Prime. Why the have I got to,
Yes.
subscribe to all of them just to
Yeah. You
see?
can
And then
swear.
they'll go, oh
Just
well,
let you know.
screw it, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna watch that film then, and then
Yeah.
I'll stay on whatever.
Yeah.
And I get it, and I see
Yeah.
this is how everyone competes, and this is how the studio's
Right.
making
Right.
money.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
it's really frustrating. And there probably is, there's a kind of probably a flood in the market. I think it's like oversaturated. There's a lot of stuff, but then there's a lot of garbage. And I think attention spans, you'll flip through one film, and in 10 minutes, if it's no good, you'll flick to the next.
Right.
Um, is it good or bad? I don't know.
Yeah.
Argumentative. I don't
Yeah.
know.
No
I don't
worries.
know.
And I just would don't worry about swearing. I've got the
Oh,
explicit
okay,
tag on
cool.
this, so you can swear if you want to. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, man.
But no, because that's the thing when you again going back to the video store era, it's like if you rented a movie,
Yeah.
you brought it home, and it's like even if it was bad in a few minutes, unless it was really bad, unless it like really was just off-putting, you
You were
sat through it for
invested.
exactly.
I
And
think you're right, because you'd go in the store and we had, you probably had the same thing. We had
yeah,
the special, it'd be like 5 for 5 on a Friday night or
yes,
whatever
yeah,
it was.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
you've invested because you've picked up that cover and you've taken
yeah,
this big plastic chunky case home, and you've got
yes,
them on the table, takes up the whole table, and you're like, okay, which one do we watch first? And it's
yes.
an event. The worst film, I've probably never said this on any pod, but I'll tell you, the worst film I ever saw in my life was a movie called Escape from the Insane Asylum.
Oh, I've never heard
and
that
and
one.
and it was on VHS. It's
Yeah,
like really hard to get. It's really obscure. I don't think it's been like digitized.
yeah.
You probably only get like a VHS somewhere on eBay Germany, and it'll be an X
Right,
rental.
right.
And it was so bad. I just remember grabbing the cover and just throwing it, sort of out the window. It was one of the worst. Like literally, you're watching the film and like the tripod falls over, and they keep filming because there's only one guy shooting the whole thing. Really bad stuff, and it had cut to scenes that had nothing to do with the narrative. It was almost like 2 or 3 different films just meshed together into a
Yeah.
feature film. It was one of the worst things I've ever seen. So if anyone wants to check that out, Escape from the Insane Asylum, worst film ever made in the history of cinema.
I'll have to
um,
check it out.
but again, we still had to watch it because we'd paid for it, and it was on the desk, and it was one of the 5, and
Yeah.
we, like you said, and the other film was probably Cujo and Friday the 13th 3,
Right.
maybe Lost Boys, and maybe Evil Dead.
Yeah.
It was always horror, back then.
Yes. Yeah, that was the thing for me too. Is it was more like my site became more action because when I started doing it on direct to video, there weren't really any sites doing direct to video action. So it was like horror. There were plenty of horror sites. So if I reviewed a horror
Which is what
film,
I love about yours,
yeah,
by the way.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's more, right? Exactly. And so people would be like, "Oh, you watch this action movie, watch this movie or this one." Whereas the horror ones, they wouldn't get as much engagement because
Hmm.
there'd be like 40 other sites that were reviewing that movie. But
Yep.
yeah, direct to video, or like because like a lot of times it was direct to video too with horror, because it was like with friends, somebody would have seen it in the theater, like if it was a big budget one. So
Mm.
unless it was like had a rewatchability factor where we all
Mm.
wanted to watch it again. But yeah, it was, like you said, and I think the other thing too was, we talk about the tripod falling over. It's like there was like a democratization that was starting at that time where you didn't have to have a huge crew. Like people started getting their cameras out,
Yeah.
and video stores needed content, and they were like, okay, well, I'll take this thing. It's in the catalog,
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. That it was because there wasn't a mass amount of movies in general.
right.
You
Yeah,
could fit it on the shelf. You're absolutely right. I remember going into one video store and you could actually grab their catalog, and I think it had 500 films, and it had a checkbox, and you could watch them all over maybe a year. You'd tick them
yeah,
off. And I remember going in and seeing the horror section and going, I've seen all of that, so now I'm going
yeah,
to have to move on to thriller, and then I'm going to move on to something else.
yeah.
It was interesting. It was manageable, but I think you, like a less is more. You savored what was there more, and you kind of invested. So man, what a golden era! What a great time to be alive. I don't know if I told you, but one of my uncles, who's also my godfather, opened the first video store in my state
Oh,
in 1980.
nice.
And I remember going into his shop, as a kid, and just being sort of mesmerized by, back then it was VHS on one side and Betamax on the
Oh,
other,
right.
you
Yeah.
know. And I've still got, I've got a shrink wrapped beta Lost Boys which I saw on eBay for like over $1,000 or something ridiculous. So it's probably the rarest one I've got. But
Yeah.
what a great time to be alive and grow up.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I think that is one of the things. Just think about the four of your films that I've seen so far. I think that's like kind of the connective tissue is that, but it's interesting because there's a lot for someone like me or people our age to recognize in your work. But I think also for younger audiences, especially when they especially if they're getting the jokes. Like I can't, again, since it wasn't as obvious for me when Lady Terror get the jokes, but they're getting the humor with it as well. I think there is, and maybe even it's a matter of like going back and seeing some of the stuff that is influencing. Like I know, like with Alien Love, it was based on the astronaut's wife, but I think it could feel a lot of sort of like 50s and 60s, sci-fi alien stuff in there as well too, which I thought was really cool.
Oh, thanks, man. And I mean, I'll be the first person to tell you that it's extremely hard to make a sci-fi film on a low budget, and I never wanted to do it. I never even thought I'd attempt it. And but it was when it was going back over John Landis's first film, Schlock, where he's pretty much just dressed up in the gorilla suit. And I thought, what if it was an alien? And I talked to the distro and they said, well, if you can get a decent enough prosthetic, which to be honest was probably the most expensive part of the movie, was the fucking mask, right? And I thought, well, this is Schlock. It's just Schlock in present day, and we've changed it from a gorilla to an alien. That's all it was. It kind of fascinates me though when you get some people, because I've seen some of the comments online, they've taken it so serious and they're passionate, and some of them hate it. You know what I mean? Right. They're like, oh, how can you? And I'm like, you fucking take a chill pill, man. Are you fucking ridiculous? Like, what do you think I'm doing here? Like, it's not Alien 4, like it's.
Well, because like with Lady Terror, I kind of look at myself like, how did I not get the joke? Like, there's the scene in Lady Terror where your character gets attacked by the guy with the hood sweatshirt, and you take him down and you just say something like, I've been sweeping legs since 1986
since or something 84, like
that. Yeah, since 84. That's and it's like, okay, Matt, how did you not get that was a joke? But I think because I've seen directors be serious with that kind of thing before. But it's like, okay, that's a joke. But in this one, it's almost like right away where it's like, the main character, Ira, Chakraborty,
Ryan and Sadie,
yes, yeah, which is Sadie, which she like. When she's like first like talking about your character going into space, and she's like watching your character take off, but then it's like she goes to see her grandmother in the hospital, and they're like, "Oh, your husband's an astronaut. That's so cool!" And it's like it's like how do you not catch that? Like that was like it was like perfect, I mean, yes, they're all playing it straight, and so I mean, but I don't think it works as well if they weren't playing it straight like that. If it was so self-aware,
you're right. It's a very, it's probably like the Ben Stiller approach, because Ben Stiller, he's so funny, but he has to play straight, or probably more like Adam Sandler. Adam Sandler, like they've said, when you're on set with him, it kind of just seems a little bit sort of monotone or maybe a bit pedestrian. It's not until you get the cut and you put it all together, then you start laughing, because it's a sequence, it's a sequence of events. And I think just take one scene out and watch it as an observer, you'd probably like, I don't get it. I don't know what's going on here. It's there's a larger vision. So sort of that dryness. And it's tricky because you have to be consistent with it. You can't. And I guess that's where the directing does come in, just trying to keep it consistent. And people will try and take you off the tracks. People will try, oh, what if we do this? And what if we do, oh, I want to play it this way. It's like, no. Just trust the guy. The guy's been doing it longer than you. Just go with him,
Yes.
So, you're right. It's a tricky thing. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, like, I've certainly got a couple of films I've made where I'll watch them back and go, but that will sort of inspire me to make the next one. I think I've always, like every filmmaker, trying to make their best film, and you can't. You'll never perfect it, and even with a big budget, it's an impossible mission. You're forever trying to get perfection, and that's probably why I became a filmmaker, because I'm one of those guys that gets bored. I think if I hadn't made film, I'd be a very lonely, bored guy, because I just I really need to keep thriving as we progress down our journeys in life.
And well, because I mean, this movie, I noticed with Alien Love, you didn't direct this one like you did some of the other ones, and is that sort of just like the project worked out better?
I've got an amazing distro in the States who I did a sequence of documentaries with, and one of them was Aliens Down Under, and we did really well with it. And he sort of suggested, because I love fiction, and he wanted me to make more docos, and I'm like, no, I want to make more fiction. And he said, oh, we'll meet in the middle. What if you do an alien film then? And I was like, oh God, how am I going to do this? And that's what got me onto the schlock thing.
Right.
But I had a line producer and I will call him a co-director.
Yeah.
So it was sort of all streamlined back to the distro, how it would be done and marketed. So and a lot of it sort of online, but there was a lot of pre-production. So and some scenes even like I just ran with it. It was a time. The biggest problem I have is, and obviously being so far from the States, it's just a scheduling nightmare.
Yeah.
So constantly online, taking their advice, following instructions, and you can do that because it's indie. You know, you can spread it out. You don't have to shoot the whole movie in 2 or 3 months. So that would have been shot over, at a guess, maybe 6 months.
Yeah.
Some weekends, some blocks with 1 week here, 1 week there. But also in America, what I've heard is that they don't favor the films where the actor has directed himself.
Oh. Really?
Well, that's probably, let's say 60-40, have said to me, oh, we sort of prefer a movie where, you've acted and someone else has directed. So that sort of lent me to experiment a bit more. But I've certainly acted in more films directed by someone else than I've done my own. And I've also directed films that I didn't act in. So I think that it's a smorgasbord of stuff that I've been involved in, and I guess I just enjoy it all, man. I mean, I am an actor. I think you'd call me an actor's director, because a lot of people, I guess, general public or people, people watching the film, making comments and stuff, they probably don't understand the actor's director, which is different to just a director who wants to act.
Yeah.
Because I'm actually both. So when I'm also acting with my cast, they know who I am, and we've probably even gone to auditions together. So it's like, oh, Nate's doing this piece. I love Nate. Yep, I get him. Boom. Yeah, let's go. Next credit. Let's go. No mucking around. Yeah.
That makes sense, because I know Fred Williams has said that that's how he got into directing, was that he didn't like working with directors who hadn't acted before, and so he started directing the pieces on his own. And like you said, I think same idea, being an actor's director, where he directed the movies from the standpoint of somebody being an actor, which I think that a lot of times, one of the things I heard, I think it was maybe Ethan Hawke said this, or somebody talked about this with an actor being a director. One of the things that actually helps in that is that actors are always thinking, like, what's my motivation? Why would this character do this? Why would they do this thing? And I think, when it's a director, they don't always think that. They go into that store there. It's like, well, why do I go into that store? The killer's in that store. Why am I going to that store? And it's like, and then the director thinks that they're just being difficult, when it's more like, no, because I know the audience is going to watch that and think the same thing, and so I think that it is, you can, and sometimes you can tell when like you said, when it's an actor's director like that they are thinking more along those lines of, like, from an actor. So what were these characters? What's their motivation?
I agree with you. I think Clint Eastwood's a really good example, because he had been directed and he felt like what portrayed him best was not what they were doing. So he gathered his own crew and he found people that got it, and then went on to do his own thing and direct himself. I mean, shit, the guy's in his 90s and he's just had a film come out at the cinema. He fucking knows what he's doing, Yes. So I think you get a lot of flack for anything you're trying to do, up until a point where you go, I don't care anymore. I think you kind of reach that point where you know who you are, and you kind of then you just do it, and people are either going to like it or they're not, and you kind of got to accept it. Nicholas Winding Refn, who's one of my favorite directors, he did Drive, Only God Forgives, Neon Demon. He said, if I get a 5 out of 10, I've made it. And I sort of was like, what? Well, and then he goes, yeah, because if half hate it and half love it, I've done my job. Yeah. And I was like, wow, okay. So I'm kind of going more down those lines. But it would be nice if the interpretation was received much like our discussion, where you've gone, oh, I get it. Yeah. And unfortunately, not a lot of people do. And so it's takes time. And also getting the right reviewers, because I've had reviewers where they just, like, I'll read it and go, what fucking planet's this guy on? He's just what the fuck, and then I'll get another one, and I'll go, oh, she got it. Oh, she's awesome, and I'll go back to her.
Yeah.
Reviewers are really strange, but even reviewers, I've always seen like teachers. It's a bit of a those who can do, those who can't teach.
Right.
Like reviewers are strange to me.
Yeah.
Like if I spent my whole life kind of reviewing other people's stuff,
Yeah.
I might find it a little bit like as a job, as a day job, that's okay. But if that was like my mantra, I would find that a bit soul destroying,
Yeah.
because you want to do you. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Oh yeah,
I'd be
I
happy to
totally
make a
agree.
film. I'd be happy to make a film, take everyone on the experience, like going to church, take them to the screening, dark room, everyone shares the same experience,
Yeah.
clap, laughs, joy, everyone's happy, and get no reviews if
Yeah.
the experience was, immaculate.
Yeah.
And Cruise talks about that, the full experience. I could become like, the perfect movie, the perfect experience of like pre-production, production, post-production, screening, release. It's a whole journey. It could go for a year.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I
So,
think it was Kevin Smith talked about Jersey Girl and how
oh yeah.
when they made that they thought they had something fantastic, and then when it
Mm,
came out it just didn't. So that sometimes happens. But
mm, mm,
to your
mm,
point about the reviewing part, when I first started my site, it was really just like I was writing these blog posts about direct to video movies and being snarky and making jokes. And I
mm.
remember, so I always tell this story about Albert Pyun, the director.
Oh yeah, I
um,
know him. Yeah. Yep.
yeah. So I watched so he had three movies come out, these like urban films that I watched one of them and I was like, something's not right here. This looks
Mm.
like, a college student making a movie. This doesn't look like somebody who's done as many films as he's done.
He did Cyborg, right?
He did exactly that. Cyborg was his
Yeah,
movie. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
know this guy.
exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So he commented on the review and he said, yeah, thank you for saying that. What happened was we filmed these three urban films in Romania. A crate of footage was lost by Air France. And so
Oh
I
my
had to
God.
cobble these things together and try to make this movie. So, we kind of had a relationship where, I review other movies for him. He commented and he goes,
Cool.
Matt, can you do Mean Guns again for me? And I was
Oh
like,
wow.
oh, okay, because I reviewed it before and I didn't really like it. And he's like, give it another chance. I think you might like it. I read my review, and in the review, I said, this guy is worse than a car movie director, a car commercial director, right? Something like
Oh,
that.
dude, that's funny.
And so he saw me saying he's worse than a car commercial director. It didn't say anything, and then came back to me for other things. And I was like, this was like, it was a huge lesson for me, that
Wow.
like, that he said, that he came and wanted me to review his
Mm,
movies after me
mm,
saying something like that. And so I was like, I'm not
mm,
going to be that kind of, I'll make jokes and be
mm,
snarky about things, but not like this point of like, this person's so bad, they're like this or that,
mm,
it kind of,
mm, mm,
taught me.
mm,
And to his credit, I mean, he taught me, things about movies that as a reviewer I learn now, or like Jay Horton's another director who he's taught me things about the business that like this
mm,
is what I go through. And he has a YouTube series where he does stuff, and he's kind of similar to you that he did some
mm,
documentaries, but he ultimately likes to do
mm,
fiction and that kind of thing. And like talking to yourself, or Tom Joliffe is a
mm,
screenwriter who
mm,
I talk to, so giving me a better sense of it, so I know when I see something that doesn't look
mm,
right, what are the myriad reasons why this
mm,
doesn't
mm,
look right. And I think that helped when it came
mm,
to seeing Lady Terror. It was like,
mm.
it wasn't so much like, let me just go kill this movie in a review. It's like, why don't I get it, right? Like, what am I missing here?
Mm,
Because I felt
mm.
like there was something I
Love
was
that.
missing, and sure enough, I think it was part,
Mm, mm,
actually Jay
mm,
Harang's
mm, mm,
his
mm.
YouTube review of Lady Terror. He
Yeah,
kind of killed it.
hysterical.
Right, but he had you on to talk about it,
Yeah.
and that was when I was like, okay, this is. And then I watched Revenge of the Gweilo, and I got it much more there. I think maybe being an action fan, like those jokes, even if they were subtler, they landed. Because
Yes.
but that
Yes.
was part of it. Was like, okay, I'm not going to. But I think to your point, it's like people assume everything is just dead serious all the time. Another
Yeah.
movie is Deadly Prey that I saw,
Oh
which
yeah.
I thought that movie was deadly serious. Then I go back and look at it, I'm like, no, there's a lot of tongue in cheek, like Rambo stuff
Mm,
in there
mm, mm,
that
mm,
I think
mm,
they
mm,
were being more tongue in cheek than I initially thought. And
mm,
so,
mm,
and I think it might have been a similar situation to when you were making some of your movies, where it's
mm,
like, okay, I don't have the biggest budget in the world,
mm, mm,
and it's
mm,
like,
mm,
can I be an homage to this type of movie, but
yep.
also have fun with it too? And
Yep. Yep.
yeah, and
Look, and I love what you do, and I love Jay. And there's another woman in the UK, Romy Norton, and she's amazing. And I think because she's also acted, she kind of
yeah,
gets my vibe.
Yeah.
I love that you revisited that film though and did that.
Yeah.
That's a big credit to you as a reviewer. And filmmakers do need you, and filmmakers do need reviewers. Don't get me wrong. Otherwise, how the hell do we get a voice out? And you've got to get a
Right.
second opinion. You can't.
Yeah.
Otherwise, then you're seen as just complete egomaniac.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I guess it's that whole thing of if you can't handle the criticism, you probably shouldn't be doing it. I think
Right.
because I knew a filmmaker who was really good. I won't say his name, but he started out in the early 2000s, worked with some big names, started getting a bit of heat on the press. A lot of people didn't understand the film. It was a bit nasty. And he kind of went out of his way to wrote to all of these people. Oh, how
Yeah.
dare you? No, you missed the mark. Oh, no, what about
Yeah.
this? What about that? He must have spent a year, just emailing all these of life. Some are in, some are out. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just life.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, because I think like with Alien Love, I think if you get it, the
Mm.
movie is a lot of fun.
Yeah, if you get it, that's
Like
right. Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah.
but I think to your point too, like you can't please everyone. Again, like
No.
I not to us Americans, we do tend to like sometimes need to get hit over the head with humor. Like
Mm,
we grew
I
up with
get
like
you.
Bugs Bunny, getting
Yeah.
dropping anvils on people, and that's like that's what it's like yeah,
Tom and Jerry. Yeah.
right,
Very, very
exactly,
black and white. You're right. It's very black and white, and I think China's like that too. I think everything's very black and white because it's the movies they make have to be government funded, and
oh
that
right,
has to include a certain amount of political content. And you couldn't. I mean, I remember trying to sell a couple of my films to China, and it was like, oh, there's no way we can sell a cult genre, erotic thriller. Like you're out of your
right,
mind, um, because of the political ratings and the boundaries there. So yeah, it's again fitting into that sort of paradigm. I mean, I just only really discovered recently that Mad Max 1 sold to Japan and then had to go to America before it came back to Australia. And it's probably one of the most Australian movies you'll ever see. Do you know
right,
what I mean? Like it's ridiculous.
yeah,
Um, oh god, yeah, just the politics of it, man. The politics of, and the unrated versus rated, real headache. Like for me, even in Australia, it's got to be rated, which does cost more money to air. Let's say if I want my film on Amazon Prime here, it's got to be rated here. But if my film's on Amazon Prime America, it's unrated. It doesn't matter.
yeah,
So even the countries, remember back in the old days of the regions of the DVDs, region 1, 2, 3,
right,
4,
yes,
and you'd have PAL, CAM, and NTSC,
yeah,
was made it really difficult. And now it's just like, dude, just fucking upload it. Do you know what I mean?
yes,
Like if
exactly,
it's a free for all, just fucking do it.
yeah,
Classification's trying to take another $1,000 out of me or whatever it is. Like just it's ridiculous. So had a mate of mine yesterday. He said, "Oh, I can't find Gweilo. I can't find Revenge of the Gweilo online." I said, "That's because it's on Plex in the UK and it's on Prime in America. You can't even get
right,
it in Australia. Like it's fucking ridiculous." So
yeah,
he's got to go and spend $40 to buy a DVD or an MOD Blu-ray online.
wow.
It's bullshit. You know.
Yeah, because there's nothing in Revenge of the Gweilo. I mean, yes, I guess there's some nudity,
Mm.
but that's like the extent of it. And so,
Standard.
yeah, there's nothing wrong with that movie that
Mm,
it shouldn't
mm.
just be
Yeah,
on,
it's crazy. And
yeah,
some reviewers overseas have described it as like one of the best Australian genre films they've ever seen.
yeah,
Yet Australia hasn't even embraced it.
yeah,
The only thing Australia seems to want to embrace is Margot Robbie and Chris Hemsworth. And
right,
I'm like, but how come? Why isn't there any room for the Nathan Hill, or why isn't there any room
yeah,
for I know a whole bunch of other guys? I know brilliant actors that don't get enough time in the sun, and when you see him, you go, holy shit, this
yeah,
guy's fucking amazing. Like mate of mine, Damon Hunter, incredible actor. Every time I see him, like he kicks a goal, the crowd just cheers, and I'm like, but why isn't he in more films?
yeah,
I've got another mate that's really good. Won't say his name, but uh, good enough to be in Mad Max, even as a supporting actor. But they won't cast him.
yeah,
There's such a. I think because it's a smaller country and a smaller industry, when it gets into the money side, it's going to be, it's a monopoly. You know,
yeah,
it really is. But certainly a lot of undiscovered talent. What I've tried to do on my films, as I probably told you before, was showcase actors that I think deserve more.
yeah,
And I see it in the reviews. They go, "Oh, I loved her. Oh, I loved this person. They invested in it. Oh, they were great. Oh, it's like, oh fuck, man, I told you. I told you.
yes,
you know, it's kind of
yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Well, because
Mm.
yeah, with Alien Love, I mean, Ira Chakraborty, almost with
Yeah,
Chakraborty, yeah. I
yeah, that's
I
it. You got it.
I got yeah.
Got it
I
well,
mean,
man.
yeah. I mean, she doesn't have a lot of credits to her name, but I
Mm.
mean, she's if she doesn't get what's being done in that
What's
movie, if she's
yeah.
not doing it right, because your character,
Mm.
just to give people an idea, because it's based off of the
Astronaut's wife.
that's right, yeah. So
Yeah.
your character is in space, and there's like a 60-second moment where he's out of
Yep.
contact with NASA, and when he comes back, he starts acting strange.
Yep.
And I mean, I don't know that if I was acting opposite you when your character
Mm.
starts acting straight. I mean, there's a scene where you've
Mm.
got like, you talk about the prosthetic that you had on your face. You also had a
Mm.
prosthetic, right? For your character has like a huge, massive heart on a certain point because these like
Yeah, the
purporting alien.
prosthetic penis,
Yeah.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
and it's like there's no way I could act in a scene like that. Or you're like, where
Yeah.
you're just like sitting there drinking champagne at the bar,
Yeah.
drinking, and you're just hitting on this other woman, and then she, as she shows
Yeah.
up, Sadie shows up
Yeah.
to try to take you home. She's just like grabbing you back home. It's like I
Yeah.
couldn't act opposite that without cracking up the whole time. But she's playing it straight. She's like, we
Yeah.
need to talk about this marriage. This isn't working for me. This stuff is, and then,
Yeah.
like eventually she finds out she's got an alien baby
Mm,
inside
mm,
of her,
mm,
and she's got to
mm.
play that straight too. It's
Yeah,
like,
that's true. That's a good point. Yeah, it's a good
yeah,
point. It's interesting, isn't it? Because on set, when we're doing those scenes, it's so much fun. There's so
yeah,
much laughter, and I do remember Ira on that day when she bussed me with the Filipino girl. Um, she said to me, she goes to me, "Oh, I just love the energy on your set. I just love these people." I said, "Thank you. That's the best compliment I can get because I've gathered these people. They're
yeah,
people I believe in, and we're having so much fun. But because they're so happy,
yeah,
when it comes to do the scene, they just invest.
yeah,
Whether it's like happy or sad or grieving or action or whatever, and they just fucking go there. And I think that's probably the best thing about my movies for me is that these guys give a shit. And when they go, they go. And I think that says a lot about me as a filmmaker because not a lot of guys can do that. There's not a lot of guys who can kind of get you pumped and G'd up. And that's probably because I am an actor. And I think that's the difference because I'm talking actors' language. I liken it to the Ron Howard kind of
oh
way
yeah,
of making films, a guy that's acted for so long that you just look at as an actor. Then all of a sudden you're watching a film and you see the credit pop up, directed by Ron Howard, and you go, "What the fuck?"
right,
And it's like, "Oh right, now I get it. That's why that film was so good
yeah,
because it was an actor's director. It was
yeah,
talking the language."
yeah,
I don't know if you've seen a movie called Entropy with Stephen Dorff.
oh yeah,
One of my favorite actors,
yeah. I love,
and
yeah. Steven Dorff's another, yeah, huge fan of
remember
his
that
too.
guy?
I don't know if I've
And
seen that one.
great film, and it's kind of like him playing a filmmaker who's fighting with the studio. Like he wants to murder the producers because they're not getting the vision, and
Right.
actually a film about this. It's about him speaking the actor's language as opposed to the producers who just don't fucking get it, and they're like, "We want to see." I think it's Lauren Holly. They're like, "I want to see her tits," and she's like, "That's all they want to see in this film. They just want to see my tits." Well, he can pay me $1 million per tit if he wants that. Fuck that producer. And I love this film. I've seen it like 10 times. And it kind of reminds me of that because it's the guy who understands the language, knows how to get the performance, but then has the producer or whether it's another director or whoever not getting it.
Yeah,
And the battle, I think that's always been the struggle, on these sets. But obviously on the low budget, it's watered down to a minor scale, to that sort of a debacle. But it still exists.
yeah,
And I saw an interesting interview recently with Ben Mendelsohn, who's an Australian actor who's now become an American actor, and was living with Heath Ledger around about the time that he passed.
oh yeah,
And Ben was saying that he firmly believes if it's like the worst budget, like a Z grade, or it's Batman and it's A
yeah.
grade, as soon as they call action, it's the same fucking thing.
Right,
It doesn't
right.
matter about all the mechanics, and
Yeah,
and I had a similar experience recently on a Russell Crowe film where it was like I could see where the money was at, I could see the camera and how much the camera's worth, and blah 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 blah, and all the crew and blah 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 blah. But when it was action, it was just man, I had to bring it,
yeah,
and you were acting, and
yeah,
it didn't matter about the fucking budget. It was just did you pull off that scene?
yeah.
It's the same process.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, because I think one of the things I like about not just Alien Love, but the other of your films that I've seen is that you do a good job of mitigating the limitations of the budget. So I think
thank
for
you.
the actor's standpoint, right, they don't have to. They can just act the scenes,
Yeah,
right, and
yeah,
then you can go in and post and do. It's like for example, Jasper, which I just saw. I mean,
yep,
it's kind of got this tongue in cheek thing with this
yep,
private eye. It's kind of goofy. He's like
hundred
hooking up
percent.
with women all the time and all that stuff, and
The
so like
private
there's
dick.
Private dick, exactly, exactly. And there's that scene at the end where he has to box the one of the women fighters,
The woman.
and yeah, and she clocks him, and you've got like kind of a computer generated blood squib there,
Yeah.
and and it's like normally, right, if you work just a straight ahead action or computer generated blood squib is not going to work, but because
Yep.
this movie is at this point where this
It's
character is
crazy.
so yeah, it's when that scene happens, it's just part of it. It just is included, and so
I love
and
that
so
you
then you
said
can
that.
tell Sarah, the boxer, you just say, just throw the punch. That's all I need you
Yep.
to do. Just throw the punch, and everything else is going to work the way we want it to work. And it did.
And you're right. And I'm sure on the day she was confused about what was going on. And I just said, just go with it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it
Yeah.
was another one of those because I knew I'd put that in later. And,
Yeah.
again, just having that trust. So that's probably another thing, has the director got that person's trust,
Yeah.
then and that's just so important. Yeah, and Jasper as well, that was based on the Leisure Suit Larry video game. So they had, it's got that corny, pixelated graphics opening and
Yes.
the CGI blood, and yeah,
Yeah.
that's all intentional,
Yeah.
because it's part of the fiber of that film.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a laugh out loud movie. Anyone take that serious, they need psychological evaluation. Like this. If you can't laugh at that, then just fucking turn it off. It's ridiculous.
Right, exactly. Now, do you see reviews of people that are taking Jasper that don't get the joke sometimes
Yeah,
with someone like
sadly,
Jasper?
I see reviews that are Australians.
Yeah.
This has always been one of my big issues, is that the Australians that I don't believe have embraced me enough, that haven't understood what I'm doing. But I mean, man, I'm not going to lie to you. I grew up with American films. I grew up in a
Yeah.
video store, so I'm emulating what I grew up watching, and I feel like that's what people want to see. Like when they go to the cinema, they're watching American film. When they're making a movie here now, locally at the Docklands, it's American budget. It's Paramount or it's Warner or
Yeah.
it's Netflix. Like, what fucking planet do they think they're on? What are they watching? I think, there's this thing down here called the tall poppy syndrome, where they all kind of, feel a little bit snobby. They feel like
Yeah.
they're better than they are. It was great when Tarantino came down, because I think he actually sort of dissed some of the industry heads and called them snobs, and spent a lot of his time with Brian Trenchard Smith, who was a
Nice.
cult action
Yeah, I
director,
love him.
and did it intentionally. And I was like, brilliant,
Yes, that's
brilliant.
awesome.
Because, man, quite often a lot of these people making absurd comments, they're not filmmakers, and they don't have the balls to even make a movie, and I don't even know what they're doing with their lives. Even the people, even the money guys, they're not creatives.
Yeah.
So I just think it's a forever battle struggle,
Yeah.
with the creative versus the machine.
Yes. Well, because that's the
It's
thing, right? I think part of it is, I think, like people think, I think because of the democratization of movie
mm,
making, like I think like for your point about Escape from the Asylum, or
yeah,
Escape from the Insane Asylum,
yeah,
like if people watched that movie and compared it to one of yours, it's
yeah.
like you're a professional filmmaker. Like you're not like, you're
It'd be in the
cutting us
middle. Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Well,
And I
I'm glad you said that, because even Jay Harang, I think I pitched him Model Behavior, and he said, "Oh, that's a proper film. I can't take the piss out of that one." And I was like, "Oh, thank God, there's one." But yeah, and that was a serious film.
yeah.
It's good to have both, because
Yeah.
you've also got to prove that you can act. And when I've done little bits in bigger budget films, I'm reminding people,
Yeah.
hang on a minute, I know I'm making low budget schlock, but let's just the guy's legit.
Right,
So
exactly.
it's a bit of a seesaw.
Yeah. Well, one other thing because you mentioned about it, people in Australia embracing your film. I mean, a couple of the reviews I saw on IMDb about Alien Love were people from the Melbourne area who liked the
Yeah.
fact that you were featuring Melbourne. Now, of course, I
Oh
think
yeah. Yep.
yeah, like you said about them not getting the joke, like they didn't get the joke about your character jogging.
Oh yeah.
As the
Yeah.
aliens starts to take him over and he starts jogging, and they were like,
Yeah.
I was seeing parts of Melbourne I hadn't seen before. This character kept jogging all over the place, and it was like, again, like I mean that scene where your character jogs past Sadie's friend,
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
that is
Yep.
just such, and it just doesn't recognize her and everything.
Yeah.
And again, I don't, if I was her, I would be cracking up. Like I just,
Mm, mm.
watching your character, I'd be like,
Yeah, I get
now
you.
I've got to get on
Yeah.
the phone and call my friend Sadie and tell her
Mm,
that, her husband just ran past me, didn't recognize me after,
yeah.
but, but again, it's like you said, like, it's so like they're appreciating that Melbourne's there, but then they're also not getting that they're supposed to be getting a kick out of your character running around like that.
Exactly. And the red tracksuit was really a bit of an homage to $6 Million Man.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Do you know what I mean? Because it was the
Yes.
red shoes with the red tracksuit. It was
Yes.
intentional. Again, that kind of cyborg or
Yeah.
non-human kind of element to it. So it
Yeah.
was a $6 Million Man reference, which, funnily enough, Bruce Lee also wore in Longstreet
Oh,
in a
right.
TV series. He wore the red tracksuit. So that sort of pops up every now and then. It's the same with the jacket that Travolta wears in Saturday Night Fever is actually the same jacket Brad Pitt wears in Fight Club.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and
Oh,
I actually purchased that jacket myself once when I shot my first film, and I remember wearing it to the after party, and there were photos of me, and I later discovered, shit, that's the Fight Club jacket. So I did a 3 shot montage with Saturday Night Fever, Fight Club, and my movie just for shits and
awesome.
giggles, and put it on
Right.
Facebook and got a few laughs.
That's awesome.
I love doing throwbacks and finding those sort of things in common. It's fun.
Yes, for sure. Well,
You know.
because like you said about the $6 million man thing, I think like
Mm,
again for a lot of American, even for myself, like I kind of picked up on it a few. I was like, oh, there, but I think like from an American standpoint, we expect if you're going to do $6 Million Man, you're going to do a slow motion jump with that sound,
yeah,
whether that that kind of thing there in the
gotcha.
background, and I think but I think that's the also the thing too, where it's like
Mm,
you don't have to hit. I kind of appreciate you don't hit people over the head with it. Like, either you
mm,
get the
mm,
reference or you
mm.
don't get it. It's like,
Yeah, it's just
um,
there.
yeah,
But it's interesting you said that though, because I think with a budget,
yeah,
I could do it better.
right.
Because and probably I don't. I just keep thinking of Ben Stiller. I just
Yeah,
thinking like, what if I had the budget of Starsky and Hutch? Like, I think I
right.
could probably like do some damage. To be
Right.
amazing. You
Yes.
know, um, they're kind of that dry humor, and you're either in or you're out.
Yeah.
Because some people probably love his stuff, and some people hate it. I think it'd be one or the other.
Yeah.
Probably not hate it, but yeah, I just imagine what it would have been like with a bigger budget. What I could have pulled off even more jokes,
Yeah.
or got the message. I think it's more about getting the message across quicker, isn't it? Not so just sort of blasé, but right more in your face.
Well, but again, like I kind of feel like it's a little bit, enough, there. Like for example, like in Alien Love, there's a scene where you and Ira are sitting at the coffee shop,
Mm,
and the woman just comes up and says, "Are
that's
you an
right.
astronaut? Oh, can I get your?" And it's like that was like a laugh out loud moment for me.
Yeah,
There, it was beautiful, and
I love it.
yeah, and it was
Well,
perfect.
it's funny because the girl Dems, who's the one that sort of sleazes onto me in the bar,
Yes, yeah, yeah,
she came to the screening and she was laughing her ass off. And she came up to me and she said, Nath, the thing I love about your films is that they're so off center.
yeah,
Like she goes, I know every time you make a film, I've got to go because I know it's going to be just bizarre. It's going to be different to everything else I've seen. And that's what I love
yeah,
about it because it's so
yeah,
left field. And I was like, that's what I'm talking about, man. And I've got another friend, Tony, who's like quite a seasoned actor in Melbourne. And he said, when I see your trailer come up, I know it's yours. And
yeah,
I said, really? And he goes, oh yeah, I know if it's a Nathan Hill film, it's got a look to it. And I thought, oh wow, this is music to my ears. That's what I
yeah.
want to hear. If I finally kind of reached my genre.
Right. Yeah.
So
Well,
that's
because that's
awesome.
the thing is that like you span all genres. I mean, like the four movies that
That's true.
like Alien Love's obviously straight. It's a
I
sci-fi
see what you
kind of a
mean. Yeah.
throwback to old ones. But then like
Yep.
the Lady Terror's more of a thriller.
That's true.
Gweilo's more action, and then
Yep.
Jasper's more kind of
Mm,
I don't know, it's
mm,
noirish, but yeah, kind of in that
yeah.
scent. So it's like different
Mm,
genres. But
mm,
like you're right, there's a tone and a feel to your movies
mm.
that's uniquely yours, which I think
Love it.
what I really loved about Alien Love was that tone came through because you were doing a take on the astronaut's wife,
Mm,
but it was enough your take on it
mm,
that it wasn't just
mm.
like you were just remaking. It's kind of like I
Yeah.
know
Yeah. You
Diddy's
wouldn't
not
want
like
to remake it and it'd be worse. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Then
it's
it'd be
kind
a
of like
joke.
I don't want to talk about Diddy's not in the best place
Oh
here,
God.
but
Yeah.
right,
Yep.
but when he samples, he just pumps a song in, right? And he just raps over a song that everybody knows. Whereas like before with hip hop, it was sampling. It was I'm going to take pieces of songs, mix them up, and put them in different places. So it's like you kind of take the basic idea of Astronaut's Wife, but then you've got your own feel and tone
Well,
to it.
there's a bit of Starman, and there's a bit of
Exactly.
Extro and
Yes.
Strange Invaders. So you're right, it's a mashup. And I think I've always admired Kubrick as the best director because, he has a definitive film in every genre.
Yeah.
And, we keep talking about the video store and, how we, would go through every genre and you tick off horror and then you tick off thriller. And that's you're kind of right. That's kind of what I've done. I've kind of like done the low budget schlock film in every genre, because even my Apocalypse Canoe is a little bit of my kind of like my the war movie, and then there's the sci-fi and the action and the comedy. So you're right, and that's delicious, and I really want to sort of encapsulate the whole lot now. I want to put it into like a box set. I want to have the whole collection, and so there it is. I did it. It's the schlock box set. but yeah, man, that's been amazing to have been able to attempt all that. I don't think I would have been as inspired if it was like 12 horror. It'd be too much. I remember making Tomboys, coming out of that sound mix after a year and just going, oh, please don't ever let me make another film like that again. It just drove you insane. The same genre every day, the same context, just the repeat of the dialogue. It's just like too much.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I think like there's also, there's pieces in Alien Love that I think, again, like you talked about, just completely uniquely yours, like the Aliens Anonymous thing, where your character just shows up and people just start telling stories about alien invasions and things like that. And it's like that. But he's like got the flyer. He's like kind of hiding it from his wife, from Sadie, and he goes, I'm talking about the main character that goes to the aliens and he just shows up, and just sits there and just starts listening to the stories. And and the guy who was the host was great too. And it was
Chase. Yeah,
Chase,
I think he was sitting in the audience of Late Night with the Devil.
Oh, really?
Wow. Yeah, he got that after mine. Yeah. So he was there. He watched that whole thing kind of unfold, which would have been amazing. He's a great guy, great actor. Yeah, man, you're right. And that's also reinventing the wheel, saying, oh shit, now we're in an AA meeting. Where'd that come from? That's me also trying to keep you as an audience, invested and motivated to keep watching, because it's just going in these turns that you are not expecting. And that's my job. How do I keep it interesting? And the best lesson or the best exercise was my Tomboys film, because it was one room, live, real time, 80 minutes, 5 girls. How the fuck am I going to keep people interested? So it all became about the dialogue and the story, and I think that was my best lesson, because after that, all the other films actually got a bit easier.
Yeah. Now that's not it is Tomboys. That's not this. Was it?
It's also called Fox Force in America.
Yeah, because that is on Tubi here in the States.
Yeah, you can see that. Yeah, that's right. Pretty gross. It's it's almost borderline a porn horror. It actually got banned here because it was too explicit. I had to cut shots out to get an R rating. But that's what happens when you're a young, hot-blooded film school graduate and you're ready to conquer the world, But trying to reinvent the wheel, and I had some really gross stuff with the prosthetics makeup that I was trying to, reinvent the wheel, and I wanted to show a penis being severed on screen in a way that we'd never seen it. I wanted to try and top I Spit on Your Grave. That was kind of the benchmark I'd set for myself. But yeah, all learning, good learning. Yeah.
Well, because I think that's the thing too, right? Is that like, I imagine, like after you've made however many movies, right? You get they sort of like, I know they talk about the 10,000 hours, but also probably like, I don't know if muscle memory is the right term for it, because it's a lot of thinking with movies as well. But like you kind of, how you're going to, you can kind of map out a movie much easier now and put it together better.
That's true. Every movie's definitely got its own challenges, and it's unique in its own way, and you are sort of starting again. You're going from scratch, which is why I've got to try to kind of remain humble. I don't sort of sit on my mountain going, oh, I got 10 films or 15 films. Oh, I'm a fucking legend. Like that. It's not, because when you go back to the basics, as soon as you make a new film, you're up against it again, and it's going to be another battle. But it does get easier. You're right, in the sort of mental stamina becomes a bit stronger.
Yeah.
And you kind of know what you're going to get yourself into, but then you've got to assess, no, is it worth it?
Yeah.
Do I want to spend 2 years of my life on this one subject? But shit, I better love it, or love the
Yes.
people in it. That's probably what's kept me going to casting such beautiful actresses as well, because essentially they're going to be looking at this face for a while, and you've got to like that person too.
Right. Yeah.
So I know with Era, because I think she's beautiful, it was very easy to watch her in the edit suite. Every time she moves, you just, wow, she's gorgeous, this woman.
Yeah.
It does help.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think to your point, like she was someone who, like your. It's interesting with your characters. Like the very beginning of the movie, it's more her, and yes, she
That's
has
true.
scenes with other people, but a lot of it is her.
Yep.
But then also when your character kind of comes into the movie, he's disappearing, he's acting weird, and so it's a lot of scenes of her. Like you said, she's got to kind of anchor scenes, and like you said, yeah, if people aren't going to want to see her on screen, she's not going to pull it off or look great in that part, doing that part. She's not going to be compelling enough to kind of carry those scenes through. And I think also she had to be a proper counterbalance to your character being goofy, kind of running around.
Yeah.
I don't know if goofy's the right term, but it's kind of
Yeah.
like that.
No, it is a bit goofy.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think because she was probably more the extrovert and he was more the introvert. And intentionally with that character, I wanted to show it rather than tell it.
Yeah.
So, if there was any dialogue that had to be telegraphed, it probably coming from her, but from him, it was more mise en scene,
Right,
and
yes.
so you're absolutely right. It was the sort of counterbalance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, like, there's that scene where they're partying because she's pregnant. She finds out she's pregnant. And your characters are partying, and she's like, "Can you go get more wine?" Or he wants
Yep.
more wine because he's the alien. He's excited.
The alien's the first time he's had alcohol.
Right,
Yep.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's like, "Can you go to the liquor store?" And he just disappears
Ends
and
up at
goes
the
to the
club because
bar.
you see he goes past the liquor store. There's a sign that says closed, so it's like the
Right.
drive-in bottle shop. If you look, it says closed sign flashing. So
Oh,
he's
yes.
gone past the bottle shop that's closed. So he keeps walking, ends
Yeah.
up in the bar, but he's like a baby because everything he's doing is his first time. So it's the first time he's had champagne, so he wants more.
Right.
So when he goes into the bar, the first thing he orders is another champagne, and the girl's like, "What's wrong with this guy?" But that he's in his own moment.
Yes.
And then when Dems, the Filipino mistress, sort of cracks onto him, she's off on her own trip. She's rebounding. Minutes before she's broken up with someone, and she wants to pick up. She's on a rebound. He doesn't know that he's an alien. So,
Right. Yeah.
but his mission, his core mission, is to impregnate.
Right.
So the alcohol mixed with just this new woman, and it could have been anybody, leads to. So what I would have done in retrospect, I think, is at the very tail end of the film, had one more shot where he's maybe having sex with her in the toilet,
Oh.
or we see her vomit in her basin at home.
Yeah.
She's pregnant.
Yes.
Something happened. Maybe he got her pregnant as well, because the alien's mission was to impregnate and to try and get this alien life form on planet Earth.
Yeah.
That would have been even better.
That would have worked because there's that point, right, where they're off screen and the bartender says, "Go get a room," and that's when they leave.
Exactly.
Right? Exactly.
So if he had ended up having sex with her or even gone and got a room, it would have made even more sense.
Yeah.
For the aliens' core mission. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because we don't know when Sadie confronts them in the garage how much time has passed. We just know that she's going. So they could have been in a hotel room or something like that.
And because he's a loose cannon and drunk, she's like, "Fuck, where's he gone? What the fuck's going on? It's been so long. I better go and grab him." But then to him everything's new. And I think when you see him jogging, obviously everything's, he gazes at the statue of the plane, and then he sees the AA meeting, and he sees the Tesla car.
Yeah. Right.
And he sees the statue of the humanoid looking up into the sky. It's all intentional because this alien's trying to figure out, where am I? How far advanced is this planet? Obviously, and hence get him hopping into the Tesla car.
Right.
He's trying to figure out how the fuck do I get out of here? Like how
Right.
advanced are they? So
Yes.
yeah, because he is literally, as soon as you see Ryan land, he's already it is the alien. So you're
Right.
only ever seeing Alien for real in those two flashbacks, which are in black and white. That's
Yeah.
the only time you actually see Ryan.
Yes. That's right. Which he's remembering her time
Yeah,
with him.
two
Yeah.
flashbacks. The
Yeah.
love scenes. One scene where they've come back from a party and they're all flirtatious, and the other scene in the picnic where they buried the medal. So other than that, every time you see him, it is the alien.
Yeah.
So it's awesome.
Well, it's like the Tesla scene is another great one. So
Mm.
for people, I mean, there's like a scene where this woman is just complaining on her phone outside of her
Yeah,
Tesla, right? She's credited as Tesla
just
woman, I
parked
believe,
and
right?
she's having a
Yeah,
drama on the
yeah,
phone. Yeah,
exactly. And your character,
yeah,
Ryan,
Ryan.
he just pops into the Tesla and just sits there. And the funny thing is, like, he's just kind of sitting there, kind of just looking like he's in a daze. So right, like, so for anybody seeing it, they don't know that as the alien, he's taking in the technology. It just looks like some crazy guy who's high
Exactly.
on something has popped in the car.
Yeah,
And for the woman, she's just like, when she says, "Get out of my car," and he does, he just gets out and leaves because he's not
yeah,
really a threat in that way. She's a little bit kind of almost a little surprised that he just got out that quickly. She's almost
exactly.
like what
Yeah.
was that about? Like, that was just
Hey,
weird, right? Like, he didn't try to attack me or
you
anything like that. Yeah.
you've understood it perfectly. That's
Yeah.
exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And I think that scene worked well because it was so simple,
Yeah.
but so effective. It got to show the audience very quickly that that's not Ryan, and
Yeah.
and it makes them think, why did he get into that car? Okay, it's a Tesla. What's this guy doing? And
Yeah.
it's a dot to dot when you go back and you piece that jigsaw puzzle together. He's just calculating, gathering data and information. Like when he
Yeah.
finally gets to that primary school and he sees, oh, okay, so there was a ship that was here in 1968 or whatever. Okay, so he figures out the only alien life form, or kind of, I guess, visitation, is in this one spot. It's near a telegraph pole. The telegraph pole, for whatever sake, maybe was drawing energy. Maybe this spaceship that came down recharged, went away. So that's what leads him to the telegraph poles in the end sequence, because there's something about electricity that's an ongoing theme. So he's trying to find out where's going to be the best place for the UFO to come down to actually essentially rescue him,
Yeah.
because he's probably figured out, I don't want to be on this planet, or maybe
Right.
his mission was just to impregnate one person or a couple or whatever. It's all
Yeah.
hearsay, but yeah. So that was sort of dot to dot. That's the themes all coming together, which I think did pretty well, particularly because considering how low budget it is.
Yeah. Well, because
You
and
know,
I think again, you've got like kind of the two things playing at once. Where like for example, when when the spaceship comes, he's being chased by, I guess, the people in black. I guess we say we
the
got
Men
two
in
men
Black. Yeah,
right.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. The people in black. That's a good
Right.
one.
Exactly. And when he's
Good
being
one.
chased, I feel bad for the woman in black because she's like in a
Yeah,
skirt and boots.
yeah,
She's like trying to
that's
chase him through all the
right.
grass and
Through
everything.
the high grass and the cows. But again,
Exactly.
that's my tongue in cheek humor coming
Exactly.
in. Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Well, because
awkwardness of it.
yeah, well,
Yeah,
it's got some awkwardness to it. I mean, also it saves money because they're not, it's not a car chase.
yeah,
They're chasing on
that's
foot.
true.
So
Yeah,
there's
that's a
that.
good point.
It
Yeah.
it
And they're also
squares with
outback, like, there's a lot, like,
yeah.
when she chases him past the cowboy who like fires off a round, and she's like, "Stop."
Right.
It's so, like, now it's outback, like it may as well be
Right.
like outback desert. So like
Right.
the communication isn't even great. So it allowed us to shoot that was almost believable, because let's be honest, like if it was right here right now, you and I, there'd be like 100 FBI or
Exactly.
CIA or whatever you want to call them. There'd be real men in black, and there'd be guns, and there'd be
Yes,
choppers, and there'd be
exactly.
tanks. So it was kind of, okay, this lends license to one of the old school 1940s, 50s sci-fi schlock movies, where it's very, very uh, sort of vacant,
Yeah.
desolate. There's one guy, there's one girl, there's one
Yeah.
field, there's one
Yeah.
radio. Back
Yes.
to basics.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Doable.
well, yeah, doable. And I thought it was, and also too, like, from the man, who shoots at him, he might not even necessarily know what he's shooting, because it's,
Correct. Yeah.
yeah,
That's right. Yeah, like, is it
yeah,
basically, it's a trespasser. Get off my
exactly. Yeah,
lawn, boy.
exactly.
It's kind of like all of a sudden we're in like a scene from Deliverance.
Right.
Like
Yes.
he's a country hick.
Yeah.
But then it's like, oh shit, now hang on. She says stop. Oh, hang on, no, there's something serious going on here. Fuck, what was that? Who was that guy?
Right.
It was sort of,
Exactly.
yeah, after the
Yeah.
fact. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think now one of the people in black, was it Robert?
Robert
Rafik,
Award. Yeah,
Rebel
Rafik
Wad, yeah.
Award. Yeah, he's in Gweilo. He was the
Right.
sensei in Revenge of the Gweilo.
He was a sensei. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Because I then remembered seeing him in others of your films. So
Yeah,
yeah.
he's
So
probably
he's
done 2 or 3 of mine. Great guy. Yeah,
yeah.
really great guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So he was great too as one of the men in black or the people in black. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I
So
love how you
you
said
know.
that. That's
Well,
true.
yeah. Because I loved having the NASA guy. Because I trying to remember who played the NASA
Oh
guy
yeah, the
in
NASA guy, Eddie Milan, and Eddie
my.
Milan, Californian born, and here does a lot on a show called The Newsreader, and just love him. Like when I met him in person the first time, he reminded me a lot of Michael Madsen. He's got
Yeah.
that same energy, and
Yeah.
there was a reviewer online that described him as the spitting image of Lon Chaney Jr., which
Yeah.
I thought was pretty bang on.
That's a good point. Actually,
He
Lon
does look
Chaney
a lot
Jr.
like him.
Yeah.
Looks a
That's a good
lot
point.
like him.
Yeah, yeah, because like that scene when we first see him. So when Sadie's coming home after, I think she just talked with her friend. Which that scene when she's talking to her friend when they're at the cafe is hilarious. Where
Oh,
she's
yeah.
essentially just saying like
Ridiculous. Yeah.
I've got such a great life, don't I? And how's your screwed up life going? And it's like
Yeah.
like oh, I'm drinking champagne now with my older astronaut husband. You still drinking beers? You still
Yeah.
and
She's
they're
like,
kind of
why
just
with
throwing
this older guy? You're a fucking you're a gold digger, basically.
right, exactly. Yeah, they're just
So
kind
it's
of
like an
picking
argument.
things at each other the
Yeah.
whole time, and it's like
Yeah.
but then she goes home and he just kind of comes out of the woods, or comes up from behind the trees. It's like I need to talk to you about your husband, and she he gives her the card and everything like that, and yeah, I thought that his character is great, and it's kind of funny too because again that whole astronaut's wife thing where it's like 2 minutes they disappeared and suddenly that was enough for they kind of do
Yeah.
that same thing of like, well, we lost track of him for a minute, but we think everything's okay. We think we should be okay, and it's like, okay, all right, well, if you think everything's okay,
Yeah.
even though you came all the way from NASA all the way to Australia to tell me this, like,
yeah. And I think did they come all that way, or was there kind of a NASA base that was local? And it's a bit ambiguous. But what I did do, as you probably noticed, was the heads were American. Like, so obviously, NASA was America. The AA meeting, he was American. The there was another one too. I think it was the psychiatrist.
Right. That's right. Yes.
She was American. So it was like every head of department's American, and that very naturally fell into place. That was something that just happened in casting, which I was amazed. I was like, geez, this is what I kind of planned, but I didn't know it was going to happen. It was awesome. Yeah. I wanted to have and with Ira, because she was Indian and she just had to be Indian. Right. So, but the plan for the distro also was to try and hit Amazon India. They thought that having Ira might be a really good sort of marketing ploy to try and get Indian ratings and make money in that territory. So we're still waiting to see how that's unfolding. But yeah, man, I'd happily make a film all American any day, anywhere. That's 100%. That's my vibe. Definitely. Yeah. And I've got a couple of favorite actresses locally that live here that are from New York. The famous Jane Badler and also Leslie Lawrence, who was a model who, believe it or not, dated Richard Gere back in the day. Wow. She's amazing. And I have cast them in many of my films because I love them and they're from New York, So they just get they get my films, they get it.
Because I know Bader from I know. Well, there's the short that you did with Jean-Claude Van Damme that she's in.
Oh, the double trouble. Yeah,
Double
Jane's
Trouble,
in that. Yeah.
It's great.
That was hysterical. That was for the Funny or Die.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That was great. I love that. What was the one that was that she?
Because that's Jasper
did,
Clay. That's Jasper in Double Trouble.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, Jasper. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is I loved. Yeah.
Awesome.
But Bader I recognize from some of those, and it's interesting because I think Lady Terror you had there was the American woman who had a thing for
that's Leslie.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Because that's a thing. I mean, I think that's kind of a thing in America that accents, whether it's especially like either Commonwealth or not. I shouldn't say Commonwealth because Canada's not one it. But Australian.
No, you're right though, because LA and New York, and if they're Canadian, I know you'll know the difference. Yeah, and in Australia, I guess it's just their ears aren't as tuned. They'll just go, oh, it's American. They'll go, actually, I'm from Canada. It's they're not very good with it here. but
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
know you'll know. Yeah, for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Kenny, you can hear just enough. Like there's certain words that you can definitely, though of course actors, don't, they kind of tune the. I mean, I kind of tune my accent because I'm originally from New England, but I'm starting to pick up the
Oh
Philly
yeah.
one here. But yeah, I think, for American women in particular, like people from like whether it's Australia or the British Isles, that accent when they come here, and so like Leslie in Lady Terror kind of having a thing for your character. It was like, yeah,
Yeah.
it kind of made sense. They're like, oh yeah, she's even though she's in Australia and everybody's got the accent, she's probably still like, it kind of just kind of
Love it.
rang true, for here in America.
Love it. And
Yeah,
she got it too,
yeah,
like she was in on it. She was like,
yeah,
yeah, I love this character. Let's go. I was like, oh, I
yeah,
fucking love your attitude. That's the thing, man. I've never, ever, ever, ever had an issue with
yeah,
an American actor in my films.
yeah,
They get it straight away and they'll come and do another film and they'll
yeah,
say, fuck, Nath, I wish there was more of you. And there's
yeah.
another famous acting teacher here who's his name's Peter Kalos. He runs the Actors Studio. I think
Mm.
it's a Strasbourg theory, and he's really good friends with Robert De Niro. Like every time De Niro comes here for a film, he'll stay at his house or whatnot. And Kalos came out and said, Nathan Hill's why the fuck, where are they? Why aren't there more of him? This
Yeah,
guy's doing it. Like you've got to go and get in his films because it's really hard to get into a feature film
yeah,
unless it's fully funded. So if it's it's a indie that's got pre-distro guarantee release, fuck, you got to do it. And so
yeah,
he was singing my praise, and I was rapt about that because
yeah,
this is a guy that knows his shit.
yeah.
So that was an awesome compliment.
Yeah, I think you can tell. You can tell. I think on a production, so like one of the some of the ones that we cover on the podcast are like those
Mm.
kind of like those Emmett Furla Oasis, like just assembly line kind of deals. Just bang them out, get some names on the tin, that kind of thing. And you can tell like there are actors in those movies that are trying their best.
Mm.
And obviously there's crew there that's trying their best, but they're up against it, right? They're like,
Yeah.
hey, it is a 14-hour shooting day. 4 of you are going to stay in a room here in this hotel. It's like, you can
Yeah.
tell what's going on there. Whereas like, like your movie, I did this movie called Clown NATO, by this
Oh,
director,
yep.
Todd Sheets. Yeah, if you know, yeah, Todd,
Heard of it.
yeah, and I could just tell, and of course when I reviewed it, the cast really liked my review of it, but you could just tell that they were all in on this concept of clowns being in a tornado,
Mm.
swooping through a town in Kansas and killing people. But I think because probably similar thing where he's a director people like to work with. I mean, you see the same actors in multiple movies of his, so
Mm.
obviously it's similar to your situation where
Right.
you've got actors
A
that you've worked
posse.
with before.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it comes through in the film. It
Mm.
comes
Mm.
through in the
Oh, that's
film.
cool.
Yeah, at least for me, I feel like I can,
That's cool.
like, yeah, I mean, just watching,
I love that.
Jasper, it's like, all these actresses that you've
Mm.
got in
Mm.
Jasper and
Mm.
all the
Mm.
names
Mm.
that are, in that movie.
Mm.
And, I think you gotta, to be able to sell it, for everybody to be able to
Mm.
sell it and not just be like, oh, I'm just here to try to, get another line on my IMDb
Mm.
bio or something
Mm.
like that,
Mm.
and I don't
Mm.
know if that's
Mm.
something that
Mm.
you almost, when,
Yeah, that's a good point, man, because the one thing I probably could still do is the kind of my art director was talking about this recently. He was like, you've got the NHP universe. How do
right,
we combine it all?
right,
Why can't we get Ishtar from Gweilo and Felida from Terror and
yeah,
mash it up, which
right,
essentially would be like my Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but it'd be Once Upon a Time in Melbourne, you
right,
know,
yes, that'd be
and
amazing.
put them all together. Because,
Yeah,
and I think even my music composer had said, "Oh, can you please cast her again?" And oh,
yeah,
she's fucking great. And I watched that film because she was in it. And so you're right. Like,
yeah,
I'm glad you said that. I'm so glad that translated because, um, yeah, and a filmmaker's got to have his posse. He's got to have his.
yeah,
You look at Tarantino. I mean, obviously, it's not a Tarantino film without Samuel L. Jackson.
right, right.
And it's kind of, I guess, yeah, like Robert Award. He's one of my guys we mentioned. And there's Jessica Borg, and there's Sime Argento, and there's reoccurring actors. Leslie Lawrence, obviously. Yeah, man, maybe there's something for me to ponder.
Yeah,
A
yeah,
mashup.
yes,
You know.
yeah. Now, speaking of Jasper, there's a couple of things with Jasper. One was you had a character named Coffee that, speaking of
Oh yeah.
Tarantino,
Which
right?
is
That's kind of,
which is direct, correct. Yeah, direct
yeah,
homage to Tarantino's Coffee. Yeah,
yeah,
100%. And probably because it sounds funny, but back then that actress was probably my first real dark-skinned friend. and for some reason she just reminded me of coffee. I don't know
Yeah.
why. She just had that funk.
Yeah.
And I said, and she was like, "What's my character name?" And I said, "Fuck it, just go by coffee. Who cares?"
Yeah. Right.
Um,
Well, because it's perfect in that role because it's like you said, thinking of Pam Grier in Jackie Brown. And for me,
yeah,
that's my favorite Tarantino stuff is the
it's awesome. I love
Pam
it too.
Grier, Robert Forster. That's like of all of Tarantino stuff, that's what I love the most. And
Oh yeah,
that character, we kind of see her from behind for a good portion of the scene in,
yeah,
in Jasper. But she's there and she's got the information that he needs to kind of keep his
yep,
case moving forward. And she's
yeah,
like, well, because again, his character is sleeping with all the women, and she's like,
yeah.
well, I need payment. Well, what's this payment you want? For it's like,
It's exactly. We
yeah,
know what payment's going to be. Yeah.
right,
And I think being in, really, sort of embellished in genre film back then, and I would have been watching all those films at the time, and because even with Fox Force, Fox Force, which some people have picked up on in the media, is almost a direct reference to Fox Force 5, which
right,
is that obviously that plot line in Pulp Fiction. So it's just where my head was at. But what I've tried to do is, because Tarantino to me is a bit of an idol, and when he made his first film, I made my first film, which was 1993, and him being a video store guy, and I was a video store guy, I felt a lot of similarities, and I've kind of tried to keep on par. So like when he made 7 films, I looked back and went, "Shit, have I done 7? Yeah, I have. Okay, good."
yeah,
I've kind of used him as a bit of a benchmark, and so that's great. Again, it's getting back to having your heroes. What's keeping
yeah,
you motivated? What's keeping you going? And I've probably used his, the amount of films he's made as kind of a benchmark. And he talks about Hitchcock, which I went online and discovered in an interview which was true, which is where Hitchcock kind of said, every director's got about 12 films, and I feel like that's about right. That's
yeah,
about right. And I think he'll be at 12 when he's finally done.
yeah.
So
Especially
it's
depending
an
on how you
interesting
count Kill
number.
Bill, right? If you count
Yeah,
Kill Bill as one
exactly.
or two, yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I wish his last would be Kill Bill 3D. That
yeah,
that that to me was
yeah,
an amazing idea, and I wish they'd go ahead with that. It's interesting seeing that recent one that they had in pre-production got canned,
yeah.
which is all about the porno rag editor or whatnot, or reporter.
Oh yeah,
I just, my guess is it was inpolitically correct. They're making a film at the wrong time on
yeah.
in the sociological kind of present day. I can imagine why it didn't go ahead, but yeah, love to get one more from him. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And you make a great point about inspiration because I think for me with writing novels and things like that, it's
Yeah,
like it's not so much the ideas, right? The ideas are there. It's like you just have so many ideas. It's more like the inspiration to like and for a movie, it's even more. Like for me, it's just getting on the typewriter or getting on the computer rather than not on the typewriter anymore, but getting on the computer. But in your case, it's more like okay, the whole production piece and like having the inspiration to go through that work again every
yeah,
time,
and be
and like you said,
inspired.
yeah, yeah, that's
Mm,
it's a lot of work. Like you said, even though you've made many movies before, I think you make a
mm.
great point that you're still kind of starting at the bottom of the hill and having to go up it again. You're sort of looking at the summit of another mountain that you've got to climb.
And the other thing too, if you look at it in a parallel kind of universe, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a professional grip, and he said, if you made a movie tomorrow that was government funded that went to the cinema, that would be classified possibly as your first film.
Yeah.
And I was
Wow.
kind of like, "Fuck! Don't say that. You're scaring the shit out of me." But it's kind of a good point, because
Yeah.
if everything that's been a predecessor is a direct to video,
Right.
that also kind of makes sense. It's a
Yeah.
different playing field.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, a lot of good points.
Yeah. All right. Now, so one of the things that I wanted to ask you about Jasper, seeing that one, 'cause I think you mentioned this when you were talking with Jay about your
Mm.
movies. Was Jasper the one that you thought maybe you were going to get funded by Red Bull and you just got cases of Red Bull and you had to put it in the movie?
Yeah, that's a good question. Jasper was a movie where I first tried my hand at kind of product placement,
Yeah.
and actually got in touch with a lot of companies, and Red Bull was one that came on board, and it
Yeah.
was really hard to get, because obviously the nature of that film was so, as we said, it was the private dick. Not
Right.
everyone was going to come to the party, but
Right.
they did. But the irony that happened, and the thing that unfolded was, I remember like a couple of days after I spoke to him, Red Bull truck arrived out the front of the house and just dumped slabs of Red Bull. And I went, oh, okay, cool. It's on. And so I factored them into the catering budget, so everyone was drinking Red Bull, and they had said, we want you to drink a full and maybe like a light, this one or the other.
Oh, yeah.
One was sugar, one low on sugar, and so that's fine. So I put in those iconic shots where he just drinks and and that was fun to do because that was ridiculous. And Jay loved that. You might have seen in the pod with Jay where he even drank a Red Bull mid interview. It's fucking gold. But they never paid. Right. So I started shooting. We got the Red Bull. We put it in the film, but they never actually paid. So there was this sort of not an argument, but there was this hearsay later. Oh, he got the film funded by Red Bull. I was like, no, I actually didn't. They actually didn't pay me at all. Right. So it was embarrassing, if anything, because then I had all these shots, and I was like, I've only put this now. It's free marketing,
for them. Right.
So the interesting thing about that film was that it was technically the first feature ever shot with a Canon 5D Mark II digital SLR camera. And I remember when it came out in the market, you could only record video for 1 minute. And I sat back and I thought, hang on a second, because the DOP I knew was really good with the stills camera and lighting. I thought, my takes aren't going to be much longer than a minute. So I factored in and said, let's shoot a feature with this. And they're like, oh my God, you're fucking nuts. Right. Now look at the universe, right? So this was 13 years ago. They thought I was nuts for wanting to shoot a feature on the stills camera. Yeah. And we got the demo models from Canon. I think they shipped them down from Sydney. And I said, look, I'm going to make this feature. I've already got Red Bull. Now I want Canon, and they came to the party. So we kind of slapped this whole movie together. Very easy to shoot because now you're on stills cameras, and I'm used to like these big fuck off cameras on tripods and dollies and like fuck, So we're able to shoot really quick. And I was just amazed at the images, because sometimes with the right DOP, you don't even really have to light that much. Yeah. Particularly if it's daytime. So we felt like we were innovative, and then all of a sudden everyone's shooting on these cameras. And I even saw an article, I think, in Filming magazine, and Michael Reimer, who directed Queen of the Damned, which I'm in. Right. Oh, he's making his first feature on the Canon 5D, and I'm like, bullshit! I just did it. Like, come on, man, give me some credit here, Christ.
Yeah, because that's a good point. Because it's like if you watch a movie now, like we're talking about the Marvel movies or the DC or whatever, if you can count to 3 seconds before they cut away to something else, it's
that's true. Yeah, and that's true. And long takes now are kind of seen as like a bad thing. But Christ, man, go back to even the Kubrick films, it's like watching theater, isn't it? It's like this big fuck off wide shot that goes for like a couple of minutes, and you're like, oh, it's almost like watching the stage. It's like watching a theater. And now they're so afraid of these long shots. I know even in my films, if the camera lingers for more than like 30 seconds, shit, I got to get out of there. The audience is going to be bored. Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing because it's something I always appreciate, like a good long shot. I think like the movie Hunger that Steve McQueen did with Fassbender, where it's like this big long shot of, it's Fassbender. And the actors, of course, they've got to know their lines for a long period of time, and they've got to be able to recite big pieces of dialogue. But yeah, like our brains are kind of, I guess, like velocitized now to it. So like I watch something like Jasper, and it doesn't seem like these edits are any quicker than anything else, right? That's just sort of the way it is. But it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and I think with Gweilo as well, I was a little bit annoyed because some of the reviews were saying, oh, but the fight scenes aren't quick enough, and it's not. I'm like, dude, I'm not making The Matrix. I'm intentionally doing a Bruce Lee setup where the two guys close up on the faces, one punch, boom, explode, reaction. Oh my God, like it's dramatic, and I actually prefer to watch that visually. I'll watch The Big Boss right now over The Matrix, no questions, because I'll see how invested Bruce Lee is, and I'll see the fight and the drama. And when he hits the guy, he fucking means it, and he only needs one punch to really knock him out. I love that. To me, it's kind of strangely more realistic.
Yeah.
And now I'm sold, and now I'm invested, and now I'm like, now I want to watch this film again.
Yeah.
I know they're not on wires. Like when he does his jumping side kick and it's at the guy's head height, that's a real kick. That's what I want to see. You know, incidentally, when I do the jumping side kick in Gweilo, that's real. That's a 6 foot high jumping side kick. You know.
Yeah.
So,
well, and also, I mean, did you get hurt too in the fight with the sumo?
Oh yeah,
wrestling?
I actually did. I probably pushed it a bit too far. People probably don't know this, but a little time after that film, I actually got a hernia. And I thought it was hereditary, but now in retrospect, I think maybe I'd pushed it a bit too far because I was training really hard like I was still 16. And I was like double that age. So I was, probably kind of went a bit silly. I think when you're in that kill zone and you're just making the film, you're not even thinking about yourself. You're sort of in fast forward. And then months later, you stop and you go, "Oh, actually, is my leg broken?" You know, you're running on fumes and you're in fast forward. We did. There was one incident. We had trainers and it was choreographed professionally, but there was one move where when I grabbed Chico, the sumo wrestler, around the neck and we fell backwards, I hit my head on the tractor wheel. Right. And you could hear a crunch and sort of the whole crew, you could hear like, like, fuck, something's gone down. And I think I did black out. I blacked out for a few seconds. But that was probably also just exhaustion. You know. And I got up and they were like, "Oh, thank God." But I looked at the DOP and it was Haley and she looked like she'd seen a ghost and she was like, "Oh, thank fuck." She said, "Dude, I thought you fucking died." You know, and she sort of felt like she had a bit superstitious and she thought the film was cursed. She was waiting for something to happen. Yeah. She was kind of scared. And she had previously fallen through a three-story building shooting a music video and actually broke her back. Oh, so she was shooting music video and fell through these, boom, 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 you know, broke her neck. So when I met her, she was in like a full neck brace. You know, I was like, "What the fuck happened to you?" And she's like, "Oh, I broke my neck." And I said, "Gee, you really suffer for your art." You know, like, so she was sort of afraid, I think, because she'd come from that experience straight back onto my set where there was a lot of craziness. So she was probably a little bit on edge.
Right. Yeah. Well, the thing with Gweilo is that, like, you know, it is a fun movie, and it's like, like, you know,
just a fun
need to be
movie.
like cutting things together and making them look so fast, but also like, you know, like you said, you know, you got hurt there. Like, it's not, you know, do you need anybody really get hurt on a movie like that when it's like, let's do, you know, we're having fun. I mean, if people didn't get the joke in that one when your character's doing the splits and all that stuff, you know,
go away. Turn off.
Right.
100%. Gweilo's like Jasper. If you don't get it within 5 minutes, don't watch it. It's just, you're on another planet. Gweilo, man, such a fun film. But Gweilo was also the movie I wanted to make as a teenager. You know, because when I first ever attempted to make an actual proper film, it was a short film called The Samurai, which is a martial arts film that goes for half an hour, and I was only about 16. And I think Gweilo was the movie I wanted to make when I was a kid. Yeah. And it was heavily influenced by the Bruce Lee movies. You know, very tongue in cheek as well. Yeah, a lot of silliness.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the one for people listening, especially, you know, this audience is much more into action movies. I feel like that's like the best intro to your films. I think that's like a good, you know,
Gweilo,
I think any of these, you know, I mean, again, Lady Terror, I do think maybe for our American audience, they might not get the joke necessarily as well, but maybe that was just B. That could have just been B. Was because what I did is I watched Gweilo immediately after Lady Terror, and I was like, okay, this all makes sense now. Okay, this, you know, and
I think the top four are Jasper, Gweilo, Terror, and Alien. I think they're the top four. I really do. Yeah, I think they represent my brand the best. And Model Behavior is a bit more serious. Eye Portrait's a bit more serious. You know, Seance and Tomboys. You know, they're different films. They're horror and they're just directed by me. So, and it'd be interesting to try and find somehow. I mean, I'd probably have to be good enough to get a Metacritic to try and figure out like which is the best film. Yeah, you know, I think Jay Harang would probably say Jasper. I think that's his favorite. That seems to be the character that I'm liked for the most. It seems to be the character where it's representative of me the best, being very sort of dry, serious, but tongue-in-cheek, um, you know, a casual guy, a very sort of laid back approach to life. As far as there's drama, oh yeah, another punch. Yeah, tell me something I don't know. You know, life's a kick in the balls. Any way you look at it, we're just going to roll with this. It's
Right.
very laid back.
Well, because what's great about Jasper too is that you've got the kind of the whole private dick hooking up with
Yeah,
women all the time, right? So that's happening, and then also the
yeah,
private dick getting decked, right?
yeah.
I mean,
It's like you fuck too many women.
right.
Another
It's like
knockout.
exactly like
Yeah,
getting punched, get his hand broken, getting all
yeah,
that kind of
yeah.
stuff, and it's
That's
like
right.
so it's like those two things are happening at the same time while he's trying to solve some
He's
crime,
trying to solve a
right?
murder,
Exactly.
the kidnapping.
Right.
Yeah, solve a
Exactly.
mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
and
he's
you saw
driving.
that now it's been adapted into the novel.
Yes, you mentioned that. Yeah,
Mm,
that's awesome.
mm, mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, by an Australian sort of pulp fiction writer, Andrew Patterson, who's friends with one of my distributors who released Jasper,
Yeah.
and they connected us, and they're doing a sequence of graphic novels, and he really surprised me. He interpreted it really well, and
Yeah.
I'm really happy with that. And Sean Kanan, my friend from Cobra
Oh,
Kai,
right.
he
Yeah.
he, ga- he gave me a quote for the cover, which was really generous of him because he's got a whole bunch of books coming out at the moment. Way of the Cobra, one of which I've read and kind of taken on board. He's a really good writer. Um, so yeah, it's been a journey, man. Just seeing a movie, because normally it's the other way around. It's the novel that becomes the film. This is a film that became the novel, so it was
Yeah.
amazing,
Well, it's kind of a
amazing.
throwback, right? Because that's how it used
Yeah,
to happen in the '80s, right? Or the '80s and '90s, they would make a
yeah,
novel of a movie, like Rambo. The guy who wrote
that's true.
wrote First Blood, he did the
That's a good
novels
point.
of the later ones. Yeah. So
That's a good
yeah,
point, man. Yeah, yeah. I didn't
and,
think of that.
and I thought when you mentioned that when I was watching Jasper, knowing that there was a novel of it out there, I was just like, I don't know how I would describe a lot of this stuff and make it
Mm, mm,
land, because I
mm,
think
mm.
a lot of it is visual. It's a lot of
Mm.
like your character.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
How would you novelize it, if that's a word? Yeah, I think he did really well. I think it's a novella, so it's an easy
Yeah.
read. It might be like 100 and something pages, and if it sells well, they're wanting to do more. I think they want to do a trilogy. I'm now thinking, as I talk to you, if I did that mashup with like the ensemble cast, would it be Jasper?
Yeah.
Look at it like that. That'd be easy to do.
Yeah. I mean,
You
I
know.
love the idea of Jasper, right? Like, kind of interacting with like Phillida's character in Lady
Mm,
Terror. I mean, that could
yeah.
be some fun stuff there. And then yeah,
Yeah.
treat it the baddie from
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
Gweilo. Yeah, that could
Yeah.
be, putting those
That'd
together.
be interesting.
Yeah, and then I mean,
Yeah.
it would be interesting with Alien Love, right? Whether it's
Oh yeah. Yeah.
because Ira's character, I don't, we wouldn't, I guess you wouldn't be able to
Did
have
she
her, but
die?
maybe
But maybe she
right,
lived. Yeah, she might have
yeah,
lived. Yeah.
or it could be Dems, maybe,
Yeah.
she could be,
Oh yeah, it could be Dems. Yeah,
or the
true.
people in
Yeah.
black, right? The people
Yeah.
in black could
Yeah.
show up,
That's
yeah,
true.
yeah,
Yep, that's right. You could sort of cross-reference the landscape, the universe. It's
right,
really fun though, having so many films now to even sort of entertain that idea. Like, I'm
yeah,
sure as a young guy, I would never dream that I would have made that many movies. I
yeah,
might have imagined making one or two, but I remember getting to the second one, and because I've known a lot of guys that have made one
yeah,
that's either been finished or unfinished,
yeah,
and I remember talking to professionals that said if you can make two, you'll keep going, but if you
yeah,
can't get past that first one, you're
yeah,
gone, because
yeah,
it's an energy thing. People just
right,
kind of can do it or they can't. And God, I've saved a lot of first time filmmakers, movies that I was involved in where I went, because I'm a guy, I don't like messy accounts. I've got to
right,
have everything done. If I invested in you, I need my fucking results. So I've
yeah.
rescued, two or three films in the last few years, and released movies, and then got them edited or produced them, and or got them released because I was a part of it.
Yeah, because I would imagine that's a good point. Because you're probably another reason why your actors get so invested in your films is that they know they're gonna have a finished product that they can put on their demo reels. That they're
That's what
you're
it
gonna get
is.
this
That's
done.
exactly
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
And sometimes I've pitched it as a showreel, kind of uh I was going to say a showreel wet dream, because if I say to Ira, you're going to do this movie and you're going to have drama, comedy, romance, action, all from this one film, you're going to have this
yeah,
amazing showreel. She's sold. She's
right,
like, well, I don't
yeah,
actually have it yet. So I'm kind of discovering actors, men and women, that really are good enough to be in feature film that have only had featured extra or stand-ins or doubles or whatnot, and now this is going to give them a reel. And I just saw another comment pop up as we were talking. A guy just said, "Where else can I see Ira Chakraborty in what other films?"
Right.
So it goes to show there's definitely a demand there. Definitely getting the casting right.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because again, it doesn't. Alien Love. As we're kind of closing in the end of time here. I mean,
Sure.
Alien Love doesn't work if she,
If she
your
was like
character.
if it was like Halle Berry, it's like it's
Right, exactly.
it's not going to
Yeah.
work.
No, and I mean, again,
Not in my
she's got
film. Yeah.
she's got to play it straight. She's got to sell it, and it's like if she can't play it straight and she can't sell it, then your character doing all the stuff that you're doing, I don't think that lands as well either, because it's got to be able that juxtaposition,
Yeah, it got a bit confusing because at one point I got a little bit of flack along the journey where it was like, oh, this guy just acts in his own stuff and it's all kind of self-masturbatory and oh fuck this guy, like, and I said, well, I'm not exactly a Neil Breen, like go and watch a Neil Breen film and then maybe get back to me, but it was kind of like the distro or my agent kept saying, "Oh, are you in it? Are you in this next one? Oh, you are. Oh, okay, good." And if I said no, I'm not, they were like, and then I'd do a pod and they'd go, oh, man, it's your charisma that made this film, and I'm so glad you're in it. And I went, oh shit, okay. So it was almost like shit. If I'm not in it, it's not going to work. It doesn't have that branding we keep talking about.
Yeah.
So that was positive.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely the case. I
That's a
think,
compliment.
again, like I didn't get the branding for Lady Terror because it was my first film of yours.
All good.
But now, Gweilo,
It happens. Yeah.
Jasper, now Alien Love, and then going back to Lady Terror, it all fits, it all works, and I think that,
cool.
I think for low budget movies, I think to have your own sort of, I think whether it's low budget or even like the highest level, to be able to have your own voice. It's a clear voice that people know. Yeah, I know when I watch one of your movies now, I know what to expect. I know what I'm going to get from your movie. Yeah, and I know I'm going to have a good time with it. I knew Alien Love. I knew before I turned it on, I was like, I'm going to have a fun time with it, and right away.
It's going to be a Nate film. What's he done now?
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's actually what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the guy to go, what's this motherfucker done now? Like what is he up to? This sneaky bastard. Yeah. That's where I'm at. And I think you get it, and Jay gets it, and he's like, he's now killing for my next film. And between us, the next film I've pretty much made for him, because I got to a point, I think it was with Terror, I'd capped 10 films and I was like, dude, I need time out. I need a break.
Right.
And I think when I made Eye Portrait, I was probably at coming off Colorblind going, Eye Portrait, I need a break. But the conversation I had with Natalie Heslop inspired me to make Eye Portrait, like thanks to her for that film. Otherwise I might not have even got to another film. And that sometimes happens. It's like the person that inspires you. And I came off Alien. I was like, God, when am I going to get this break that I've been after for fucking 10 years? And then Jay, the relationship, friendship that we've got, he kind of inspired me to make Bit of Desire. And like that's in the works now, which I'm going to send to you as well, straight up.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's someone else inspiring me. It's amazing, And I think that film's kind of made it for him. It's all tongue in cheek, and he can't wait because it's going to be, what's this motherfucker done now? And he gave me the best compliment I've ever had, man. From someone of his kind of stature. He said it was so refreshing that after he talked to me to realize there was a filmmaker and an actor on the planet that was a normal guy. It hadn't gone to my head. It hadn't gone to my ego. I'm not sitting on the mountain going, oh, look at all my movies. It was just, he's back to square one. He's a normal guy. And he loved that, because I think some of the actors he talked to are filmmakers. He just thought they were a bit, not wankers, but a bit opinionated, a little bit pompous.
Right.
So I love that. I love that he said that. And what I love about you is you've revisited a film. I mean, credit to you, man, because like, fuck, there wouldn't be a reviewer on the planet that's reviewed, someone's work. Like you were talking about Albert Pine, and you've done it with me as well. that's a credit to you, man. No, I don't know anyone that's gone back and said, "Oh, hang on, maybe I better have another look." And it's funny because my film Colorblind, the tagline on that film is "Sometimes you need to look twice."
Yeah.
And I did that for the same reason we're talking today about, hang on, did I get it or not?
Right,
You know,
exactly. Yes.
I'm now sort of telling the audience, you actually have to watch it twice.
Yeah. Well, at least
Yeah.
it was I think when someone like yourself who's probably working to making a movie comes to me and says, "Hey, can you take a look at this?" It's a very different thing. It's something I never expected to have happen with my reviewing movies. I thought I was going to be grabbing movies off of Netflix or whatever, or direct-to-video movies, and being like, "Look at this schlock film from 1988 about with exploding huts," And
Yeah.
then to have movie makers say, "No, I want you to review my movie,"
Yeah.
and then it's
Because I
like, wow,
like your
okay,
reviews.
yeah, and it's like, okay, I know this person's going to read this review. I know, but I also know how much work they put into this movie. This is their baby in a way, or however many babies you have, but they're still, and so if I don't get it, if I think it's, I think for whatever, I guess with Lady Terror, I don't know what it was, but there's something where I was like, I'm missing something here. I feel like I'm missing something here. Like, you know what I mean? Like I just knew I was, and it
Love it.
turned out, yeah, I was missing. I didn't get the joke the first time through it, And again, I think it is that thing where it's like, kind of almost like the $6 Million Man comment. It's like sometimes we're Americans. It's like the tracksuit's not enough. We need the slow motion jumping and the one to get the
We need a little bit more.
Yeah, but I also appreciate too that you're making a movie with your sense of humor. And if you get it, you get it. If you don't, it's like, okay, if Americans don't get it because they need to be hit over the head, they need the anvil to be dropped on their heads, that's fine too,
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think Tarantino's the same. We've talked a lot about him, probably because he's one of my biggest influences, but it's a lot of his stuff subtle. Like,
Yeah.
people still are only discovering that Steve Buscemi was one of the waiters in the Pulp Fiction scene. It's like, really? What? It's like going back to Enter the Dragon and seeing Jackie Chan as a featured extra in one shot. I think I had more screen time in Queen of the Damned than he did in Enter the Dragon.
Right.
Like it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. God, just passion for cinema, right? You and I both just love movies.
Yeah.
Just fucking love movies.
And it comes through. I think for people listening, especially, Alien Love is your newest one. But it comes through in the movies. So it's like you can watch Alien Love. No, you're as someone who loves genre cinema, as love cinema in general, but but appreciate genre stuff. You can kind of get it in each of the different pieces. I mean, again, between the aliens themselves, the different throwbacks to certain types of scenes, but even the comedy, even the character being goofy, sitting in the car, that kind of stuff, I thought was great.
Man, I think I would never blow my own trumpet, but if I wanted to sort of give myself a compliment, going back, looking at myself as a kid, to sort of, have dabbled in every single facet of the film industry, from working in a video store to being a camera assistant at a TV station, going to film school, acting, writing, producing, distributing. Like, it's a ridiculous amount of cross-referencing that's gone down, and it's still sometimes I sort of pat myself on the back or fucking slap myself across the face, wake up, like, smell the fucking coffee. Ridiculous, man. And what a privilege, because there's not many guys that I think have even really had the opportunity to do that. It's very hard to have spread yourself across all those industries, particularly in a country like Australia, where it's basically and going back to when I started, it's fucking wasteland.
Right.
There's very few opportunities. And I remember being, God, I was a teenager and I was camera assisting for NASCARs. I was in a fucking helicopter, shooting NASCARs for live to air, and just going, oh yeah, just, dude, hang on a second, like, just look where you are, and going back, how the fuck did I do that? I've got an Irish friend who's a pretty big indie actor, and he and I have a laugh sometimes because a couple of his first jobs were A-list, and he felt like he started at the top and then went down. I'm similar in a sense. I've had those A-list experiences, but I've carved my own way, and just done what excites me, and I'm pretty content with that. And man, big budgets, man, they're a headache. When I've done proposals for big budgets, like, it's a lot of stress.
Yeah.
So again, it's how much you can handle, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Each
I
to their
think,
own.
I think big budgets are a little bit. I mean, I think again, the movies that you're doing on those lower budgets, I think,
Mm.
are just, yeah, they're a lot of fun. I think this is, for people, they don't go long. They're usually kind of in the 80 to 90-minute range.
Yeah,
And they're, again, here
if
in the
that.
States, they're on
Yep,
Tubi, so they're
yep,
easy to find. I mean, Alien Love
yeah,
is on Tubi. It's right there. I think
easy.
people, you're looking for a fun Saturday night movie. I think,
Well, yep.
it's like, everybody looks for kind of like schlock, but like not on purpose schlock. They look like, Samurai Cop, things like that.
Yep.
I think
Yeah, I love Samurai Cop. Yep.
yeah, and I think what you're doing that I really love is that you're making the schlock on purpose, but not in this way that's like, oh, hey, look at all this funny stuff we're doing. It's all
Yeah,
kind of
like you're not seeing the monkey outfit on the cover.
right,
You've
exactly.
got you're right. You're absolutely right. You've got to go on the journey still
Yeah,
to discover what it was,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
have a laugh and go,
yeah.
"You motherfucker!"
Right, exactly, which I think
Yeah,
is
it's
fantastic.
suckering him in a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a
yeah,
little bit of a misdirection, but
yeah,
like there's a laugh at the end. It's all good,
exactly.
and it's not
Yeah,
going to be a 3 hour indie where you fucking want to kill yourself. Because the
right.
fucking film's going too long. I mean, I
Yeah,
saw a 3 hour indie recently, and I didn't feel good. It made
right.
it made me upset. It's too fucking long.
Yes,
Low budget's
right.
got to have a cutoff. It's got like
Yeah,
85 before
yeah,
creds. It's just the last film I made intentionally it's only 70 minutes, which in Australia is the minimum requirement to be deemed a feature, full length.
yeah,
And I did that on purpose because of the attention spans we're talking about that are lacking. I said I'm
yeah,
just going to do a 70. Well,
yeah.
why not? And it's actually ended up being easier to make because it's only been really a year that it's taken me to make that film from like conception to completion, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So there might be something in that, you know.
Yeah. And I know, do you
Yeah.
find is it because I've talked to other directors where it's sometimes hard to do the minute per page when you're making a
Yeah.
movie. So
Yes. Yes. I think if it's because final draft, which I write in, is exactly that. Like one
yeah.
page equals 1 minute. If it's scripted direction, that's true. But if it's
Yeah.
dialogue, it's half.
Oh, right. Okay.
But because depending on how fast people are speaking as well,
Yeah.
quite often if I've written a minute page of dialogue on screen, it's 30 seconds if that's
Yeah.
just talking heads. But generally, with a feature script, I think if you've written 90, you've got a -10. So
Okay.
if you've got a 90-page screenplay, that means the running time is probably 80, and that's with credits. So if you
Yeah.
take the opening montage and the end credits out of that, now you're at about 75, 80, something like that. And
Yeah.
that's usually how mine work. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's still a 1, 2, 3 act structure. But act one, which is because I'm like old school Sid Field. I'm like textbook screenplay, like Chinatown.
Yeah.
I will do the first 10 minutes, set up every character. There'll be act one, then there'll be a plot point, and then
Yeah.
act two, another plot point. So set up, confrontation, and conclusion, um, and a couple of red herrings. And
Yeah.
sometimes the movie ends on a cliffhanger because obviously Alien Love ends on a cliffhanger.
Right.
Um, yeah, because you're like, holy shit, where is he going? Oh, it's over, and that's
Right.
intentional.
Yeah.
One thing I'll tell you that you might find interesting: Gweilo originally was the Jasper 2 script.
Oh, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and it became Gweilo
Yeah.
because of my love for martial arts. It just evolved because I was like, well, I think I wanted to put Jasper in Chinatown,
Right.
but then it became Gweilo, which is
Yeah.
awesome. But
Yeah.
that was because it was again a private detective or an ex-cop,
Yeah.
similar kind of character.
Yeah. And that one had a lot
So
of drive in it too, which I really liked.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you and I mean, God, if you don't like Drive, I probably wouldn't even be your friend. Like
Right.
what a
Exactly. It's one of my
movie,
favorites. Yeah.
what a movie. And in Germany, they referred to Gweilo as Drive 2.
Oh, you mentioned that.
I'll
Yeah.
send it to you. I've got a poster that's from
Yeah.
Germany of
Wow.
my back with the scorpion
Yeah.
jacket, and they fucking Drive 2,
Wow.
which is amazing.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
So
That's so
that's
cool.
another reason for me to go. I've made it. That's it.
Exactly.
It's like one of my
Yes.
favorite films of all time. Drive. I
Yeah.
think I've watched it back to back twice in a row when it came out. I just
Yeah.
couldn't get enough.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's one of those ones that when you see it, for me, it was the same way. It was like I saw it
mm,
and I was just like, I can't.
just hooked.
Yeah.
And I think that's when Gosling peaked.
Yeah.
That was his peak to me because
Yeah.
the new stuff, I don't. I'll be honest, I don't enjoy as much.
Yeah.
I loved his really peak cult indie films was where he was king, you know.
Yeah.
Although I do love Blade Runner 2049, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But I'm not huge on like the Barbie and the La La Land and the Fall Guys bombed pretty hard. Not a fan of that sort of stuff.
No, because Gosling has an independent aesthetic. I think that
Yeah, he's come
you know
out of it.
yeah
Like The Believer, which he shot in New Zealand, which is basically the New Zealand version of Romper Stomper. Now he plays a Nazi skinhead, which is
right
also interesting now seeing the friendship between him and Russell Crowe, because when
yeah
Russell Crowe did Romper Stomper, Romper just obliterated. So I think The Believer got lost.
yeah
It was kind of like they say that film that William Friedkin made that got smashed because of Star Wars, you know, like the timing it came
yes
out. I
yeah
think it was called Sorcerer or something like that.
yes I think yes
Remember
yeah
that? Like there's times in history where films get lost because the other one smashed it.
right
Um, but that was his humble beginnings. And I
yeah
think it was his mother made the decision to take him to New Zealand because she thought, well, he'll become someone, which he did because he did Young Hercules there. That's
yeah that's right
where he got his start.
yeah
But seeing him climb up, going from like, you know, Lars and the Real Girl to Blue Valentine to
yeah
Drive, and you're like, oh,
right
he's made it, you know,
right
and you can see the journey. But now it's all fluff,
right yeah
you know, and
yeah
I'd probably do it too. It's money, it's career, it's
yeah
reach, it's, you know, fame.
yeah
Not knocking it.
yeah.
But for me, my favorite film of his will always be Drive.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, I wonder if it's kind of like De Niro's. Some of them where it's just like I've proven I can do this, so
Yep,
I don't need to. Like Cage, he gets his
absolutely.
Oscar. Do I need to? Or even like Robert
That's
Downey
true.
Jr. gets his
That's true.
Oscar. Okay, I'll go back to doing Marvel movies now. Pay me
Yeah.
$200 million, and yeah,
And Downey Jr. goes on a lot to talk about how indie films suck. You know, he'll say, you know, and it's because of the conditions. And
yeah.
part of what he says does make you think, oh God,
Listening. I mean, Lady Terror is based off of Blown Away, the Corey
correct. Yeah,
Haim.
the Corey
Yeah,
Haim film.
yeah,
Yeah,
which I know a lot of people on my site have seen that one, so I think they'd get a kick
awesome.
out of that one. But again,
That might have been why I first reached out to you.
that was exactly,
Because
yeah,
because I was looking for specifically people that may have reviewed
yeah,
Blown Away, and
yeah.
I thought if they've liked that, they might like Terror.
Yes,
I think
exactly.
that was
Yeah,
my
that's what it
first
was.
reach out
Yeah,
to you. Yeah,
exactly. Because Terror was the first
awesome,
one I saw of yours, and like I said, I saw
awesome.
it and I was like, "There's got to be something I'm missing here." And then I watched Gweilo, and I was like, "Okay." And also your interview with Jay Harang was with help
Mm,
too, because I was like, "Okay, yeah, these were jokes that went over my head, but they were,
mm.
so it's like, yeah." But yeah, they're a lot of fun. That as we're wrapping up here, Nate. Anything
Yep,
else that you wanted to mention?
man, just great to finally have the proper chat with you. Thanks for
Yeah,
going the distance, and I feel like we really covered a lot of ground here, and thanks for reviewing several of my films. You know,
yeah,
I'm so glad that you have, and I love the critique as well. You know,
yeah.
I'm not precious.
Yeah.
If you turned around and said, Nate, I hated this movie and these are the reasons why, I'd
Yeah,
actually read it. I'd take it on board. You
yeah,
know, and I just appreciate the time someone spent on any of these films
yeah,
that are low budget. You know, it's
yeah.
so thank you for that, man.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. I mean, like I said, they're a lot of fun. I enjoy them. And like I said, I'm looking forward to your next one. You have other ones on
Cool.
YouTube too. That sorry, not YouTube, on Tubi that I'll probably
Mm,
check out at
mm.
some point. Like you mentioned.
I think there's 7 or 8 on Tubi, and then
Yeah,
there's a lot on Prime, and
yeah,
there's a lot on
Plex.
Plex.
Yeah,
Um, Trying to think what else, but Apple TV, you know, Google Play, which obviously
yeah,
now is kind of disappearing.
right.
But yeah, Apple TV and Prime were probably the staples.
Yeah,
I'm glad they're on Tubi, you know, some
yeah,
of them, and then Plex picks up the ones that aren't.
yeah.
But the other thing is too, because as we're saying, you know, I'm the Renaissance guy. Every movie I've made's on DVD and Blu-ray still,
Oh, right. So yes, we will buy
and
them. Yes, well.
I do it for myself. You know, I have
Yeah,
my mantelpiece and I have all my
right.
movies, you know, at home. You know,
Yes, exactly.
I do it for myself. If
Yeah,
anyone
it's gotta be
buys them,
nice to be
that's
able to
just
look at that.
it's a bonus.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
yeah,
amazing. I did a video recently just on my Insta story, and I just sort of panned across all the movies, and one of the girlfriends I have, an actress, she messaged me and she's like, "Oh my fucking god, are they all yours?" And I was like, "What? You didn't know?
right.
You don't know how many films I've made and you're even in one? Jesus,
Yeah,
do some fucking research." But yeah, that was that's one thing I'll say to Matt. One thing that annoys me is people that don't do the research.
right. Yeah.
Like
Well,
coming into any scenario without the
yeah.
research, don't do it. You
Yeah,
know?
I think especially, for review sites like mine, if somebody like yourself comes to me and says, "Can you watch my movie?" I think you kind of owe it to that person to look into it, find out,
At least you've gone to the IMDb.
right, exactly.
You've gone to,
Yes.
you've done that. You've gone to
Yeah,
YouTube. You've gone to their
yeah,
page. You've gone to their website.
yeah.
Christ, can you imagine if I cast an actor and I didn't do a background check?
Right,
Could be a
exactly.
disaster.
Right, yes, exactly.
It really
Yes.
could. There was one woman that came to me once, and I was a little bit sus, and I did my research, Googled, found out she was involved in a court case. Drama city, drama,
Yeah,
drama, drama. I just straight away went, no fucking chance.
yeah.
This energy is not what I'm after.
Right. Well,
You
because
know,
that's part of what makes your movies good is, finding out from you, on this episode is that the behind the scenes, that the
yeah,
chemistry, everybody involved and everything, it kind of comes through in the finished product, which I think is important.
I love that you said that, and it's true. And anyone that doesn't think that,
Yeah.
needs to kind of again do their research, because then they're just shooting blanks. And I
Yeah.
think that's what happens when I get a bad review. A lot of it, they've shot a blank, they've
Yeah.
completely misinterpreted it,
Yeah.
and so it's on them.
Yeah.
Um, and anyone that I've met in person, once I've spent enough time with them, they're usually laughing by the end of the conversation. They're usually like, this guy, he's pretty chill.
Yeah.
Why am I taking all this shit so fucking serious? This guy doesn't really, he's cool,
Right,
you know?
right, exactly. Yeah. And I think
Yep.
part of it is because I've seen so many movies where they are serious. Though it has made me go back through some of the ones that I thought were completely serious to wonder if I messed up
Mm.
some of those ones as well. Because you just,
Yep.
you
It can
don't
happen.
know.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. I'm the same. I'll find an actor I like, a director I like, and go and watch their films, and then go back and reassess and go, what am I not getting? I will try, you know, and some stuff so subliminal, but there's so many cross genres and subgenres. Someone says, "Did you make a horror film?" And I go, "Yeah, but what subgenre?
Right.
Is it creature feature? Is it rape
Right.
revenge? Is it a slasher?" You
Yeah.
know, like I remember seeing the subgenre chart when I was in film school of horror.
Yeah. Yeah.
It must have been like 20, 30 different types of
Yeah.
films. And I was like, holy fucking shit, what am I making? Oh, I'm making a rape revenge. Okay. But like, it was nuts.
Yeah.
That people think it's just horror, comedy, drama, like you'd have in the video store, 5 or 6
Yeah.
different aisles. But
Yeah.
it's obviously, you being American, there's just like, there's so many subgenre. It's
Yeah.
incredible. I love that.
Yeah. Well, because and the subgenres are great within streaming services with thousands of
Mm.
options.
Yeah.
You can use the subgenres to really drill down to what you're looking for, which does help.
Yeah, that's true. And I
Yeah.
think also, like, time's pretty precious. I guess, flag what I want to watch. I'm not going to watch what I don't want to watch.
Yeah.
And I certainly don't have time to sort of rag on someone if I didn't like their film. Why the fuck did I watch it in the first place? You know what I mean? I'll
Yes.
just turn it off. I'll go to the next
Right.
film. But I
Yeah.
like to seek out an actor or an actress that I like, and then watch all of their films
Yeah.
usually in chronological order.
Yeah.
I think the first actor I ever did that with was like Richard Gere or James Spader. Just
Right.
started from zero and went all the way. And it's an amazing journey because you watch the progression, you see how much better they get, and you
Yeah.
see if their performance differs with a higher budget.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a character study. Did that with Rob Lowe, did that with Cruise, did that with
Yeah.
Patrick Swayze. Even C. Thomas Howell, his career kind of goes downhill. He
Right.
has this
Yes.
peaks at, like, as a teenager. Where the
Yeah.
fuck to from here? Same thing
Right.
happened with Gwyneth Paltrow. Gets the Academy Award really young.
Yeah.
Where does she go from there?
Yeah.
You know,
Right. It's like
Interesting
Shallow
study.
Hal and stuff like that. Yeah. And like you said, with C. Thomas Howell, it's like, yeah, what do you have
Mm,
like I looked at his IMDb because
mm,
I had somebody on, we were talking about one of his 90s actioners, this low budget actioners, Sweeper, which is
yeah.
a really fun movie.
Yeah.
But I forgot, like, he's, Red Dawn, The Hitcher,
Oh,
Outsiders. I mean, just
Outsiders.
tons of
Yep.
big ones from that
Soul
period.
Man.
Soul Man, yeah, that was another big one.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was interesting seeing, like, once he'd peaked, he would have to do 10 kind of hack indies to get a
Right.
gem out of one of them.
Right.
It'd be like 1 in 10,
Right.
and
Yeah.
the amount of movies that there are that are garbage. And,
Yeah.
I don't know if you picked up on it, but I'm really good friends with William Catt,
Yeah.
Greatest American Hero.
Right.
And he had done a film with him. I'm trying to think of the name of it. Might have been The Big Game. And I
Oh,
watched it
yes.
because they're
It's a
both in
recent
it.
one. More recent
Yeah,
movie. Yes.
yeah,
It's
and
on
I
Tubi.
watched it specifically because they're both in it, and because I love William, and seeing him with C. Thomas, and I was like, God, this apple's fallen far from the fucking tree, man. I'm
Right.
so sorry to say that. It's
Yeah.
just like complete, and I've seen him in interviews. It's like a completely different person.
Yeah.
It's just bizarre.
Yeah.
So I
It,
guess, yeah, again, sort of you can swing one way or the other. And
yeah.
I think if you get the drug when you're younger as well, you're chasing it forever. Once you've got that
Yeah.
taste for film and fame, how do you let it go? And Tom
Yeah.
Cruise is the best example. I mean, this is a guy who can't let go. Even in
Yeah.
Maverick, when Iceman says, "Dude, let go," he's like, "I can't." Like it's
Right.
present. It's fucking life imitating art. The
Yes.
most ridiculous thing I saw today was now they're talking about a Days of Thunder sequel.
Yeah.
That's got to only be because he's seen Brad Pitt's doing the Grand Prix movie, which is
Right.
supposed to be
Yes.
like Maverick on wheels.
Right.
Why else
Exactly.
would he make it? It's just
Yeah.
competition. It's just
Right.
it's hype. It's bullshit. It's too
Yeah.
much. He could
Yeah.
retire now easily. Go out, take your millions, go buy an island and chill the fuck out and reflect.
Right. Yes.
You know,
No, you're right, because it's like this thing where it's like, you know what it is when you retire, and when you're Tom Cruise or wherever it is. They were saying this about Bob Iger, the Disney guy, because he retired and then came back. It's like when
yep.
you retire, nobody's
Did you
calling
need
you.
to?
Right.
Yeah,
It's like nobody's calling you anymore. Nobody.
yeah.
You're not getting the lunch date. You're not
Probably
getting.
don't. Yeah, they're not used to it, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, that is egocentric, and
Yeah.
because it's what you're used to, and
Right.
in that respect, it doesn't matter how much money you've got, because that's kind of sad.
Right.
And I've always that's why I like Tarantino, because he's
Yeah.
avidly said, "Dude, I'm going to stop.
Right.
I want my exit. I want my last chapter to be mine. The
Yeah.
world's owned the rest of my fucking life. I need my own time out and chill the fuck out.
Yeah.
Take the money, relax, reflect, give
Yeah.
back. You're only on the planet for so long. Watch your
Yeah.
body of work. Enjoy
Yeah.
it. But
Yes.
oh, I've got to now go and do, blah blah blah, part 9. It's like, but you're 70.
Right.
What the
Exactly.
fuck, And
Right. Yes.
it's just crazy.
Yeah.
Absolute craziness.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I think it's one of those things, right, where it's like, if you've got like Tarantino, he's like, I'm going to make them while I love them, while I'm still, able to make them and love them and go out on my terms, like you said.
mm,
And you see that sometimes with an IMDb actor. You'll see that suddenly everything cuts off at like 2005 or something.
I've seen that a lot lately. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
And you look in and you
But I
find
don't
out,
mind it.
no, you find out they stepped aside. They said, you know what,
Yep.
I have kids. Whatever. I'm not going to do this anymore. And
Yep.
yeah, I think it's one of those things. I think when it's in you, and you've got to make the movie. I think it's like you said. It's like, what's the reason? Is it because I really need to tell this story, or like you said, it's like I gotta,
Is it a numbers game? Yeah,
right? Yeah,
that's right. Because you can't tell me that any of those A-list stars are doing their recent film because they needed the money.
right.
It's bullshit. There's no way.
Yeah,
Not if you're, sort of multi-million dollar, $40 million picture deal, status actor.
right. Yeah.
That's just ridiculous.
No.
I mean, I love The Rock, but I kind of am sick of him because it's almost like he's done too much.
Yeah.
Like in his world, I get it. He's The Rock. He's the man. He's the machine. He's the monster. He keeps going, keeps going, keeps going. Smashes the box office. But like it's overkill.
Yeah.
And I even had the same problem with Hemsworth. Credit to Hemsworth, though. At one point, he said, "Oh, I'm even sick of seeing myself." I
Right.
felt like that. I was like, "Can I get another Aussie actor,
Yeah.
please? Like, I've had enough. Like, I need a break.
Yeah.
It's overkill." And it's funny, isn't it, though? Because when you're a kid and you watch a film and you see Christopher Reeves as Superman and you go, "He's Superman."
Right.
And then you
Yes.
see him pop up in another film and you go, "Why is Superman in that courtroom drama?"
Right. Yes.
And yeah, and I always kind of saw it like that. I was like, each actor has a moment and each person represents this thing,
Yeah.
but then we get greedy,
Yeah.
you know? Um, James Bond's okay because you're still playing James Bond.
Yeah.
My J letter characters, Jasper, Jaffe, John, Joel,
Right.
right? They're all a theme. They're kind of Jasper
Yeah.
in disguise.
Yes.
So I hope like that's okay. But I don't kind of want to see myself or someone else playing too many different characters. I don't know. Just because there's so much talent on the planet, I'd rather it was spread out a bit more.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I agree with you there. Because there's so many names that you watch and you're like, why is this person not doing bigger things? And it's like,
Yeah.
it was like, you like the DTV actors like Don the Dragon Wilson or somebody like that. And it's like, well, when Seagal and Van Damme started making direct-to-video movies,
Mm,
suddenly
mm,
people didn't want to make movies with Don the Dragon Wilson. It's like, well, why
mm.
not? Like,
Oh yeah,
there's,
Don. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
That's right. He was here recently in Melbourne.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, he came out and did a fan event. I think you're right. Van Damme's amazing though because he knows his brand and you watch him
Yeah.
for that. So
Right.
he's
Yes.
able to do, 30 films, which is pretty much the same character.
Yeah.
Mickey Rourke came out online recently and had a stab at Tom Cruise and said that he said Maverick was irrelevant because Cruise only plays Cruise.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Phew, Jesus. I mean, you've got to go back to Born on the 4th of July to realize that's not fucking true. This guy can
Right.
fucking
Yes.
act. Watch A
Oh,
Few
right.
Good
Yes.
Men. Watch
Yeah.
A Few Good Men. Watch Interview with the Vampire.
Yeah.
But when you've got essentially, let's say, I mean, could you call Van Damme a B grade actor?
Right.
Maybe, because
Yeah.
most of his stuff's direct to video, but
Yeah.
he's doing what we want to buy,
Right. Yeah.
and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like you can imagine him in Kickboxer, and then he went into Double Team, and then he went
Yeah.
into Time Cop, and you can see
Right.
this guy going on a journey, so you can almost link the chain.
Yeah.
But then, like when Van Damme tried to do this silly comedy where he almost looked like the Joker or something, it
Right.
bombed. Because
Right.
it's like, "Hey, that's not the guy. That's not what I paid for."
Yeah.
Um, so there's something about branding, isn't there? And
Yeah.
what we want to get and what we want to buy and what we got that we loved before, we want to get it again.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's why we're buying it. And we went to that restaurant on Friday night because it had the beautiful steak and mushroom pie. And I'm going back there next week because I want that fucking steak and mushroom pie again. We're creatures of habit, aren't
Yeah.
we? I think.
Yeah, but I think like one of the things about with your movies that you could say is that even though you kind of have your style,
Mm.
you can go through use that style in different genres, which I think is
Yep.
really cool. It's almost like that restaurant having different things on the menu people want to try from different, like different
But
maybe
there's that
ethnicities.
staple.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
what you're gonna get from a spice. It's like different versions, like maybe like you said, there's a staple that like maybe has like different versions, like a different ethnicity or ethnic food or something like that. Yeah, and it's I
Mm.
think it's one of the things I've noticed in watching your movies is that like it's like you said, it's kind of that same idea, like that
Mm.
steak pie, like we know what we're gonna get, but it's like different flavor each time. But
I
like
kind of think you made me think of Jason Voorhees, because
yeah,
you got Jason at Camp Crystal Lake, then he's in Manhattan, and then he's in
right,
space.
right,
Jason
yes,
X. And
right,
I was hoping that's where the Machete franchise was going to go, because
yes.
because apparently Machete 3 was in space.
Exactly. I guess they never
You know
made
what I
it.
mean? And so,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what we're saying with my stuff.
Yeah.
Jasper on foot, and then Jasper is now an alien. Instead of
Yes,
like, yeah, I
exactly.
kind of like that. I
Yeah.
really like that. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
That yeah.
Yeah, I know. I think it's like you said, it is kind of a fascinating thing. Like the character's kind of the same, but like in the tone of the movies are the same. But to be able to do that across different genres and have it work, I think, have it be fun
Yeah,
every time,
yeah.
Yeah.
And I go back to Ben Stiller again, because you look at Tropic Thunder,
Yeah.
you don't imagine him in a war comedy. Yet
Right.
film is brilliant.
It
So if you
is.
put
Yeah.
that next to Zoolander,
Yeah.
next to Starsky and Hutch,
Right.
3 completely different films, but
Yeah.
he just kills it in every time.
We'll talk about Tom Cruise,
Yep,
probably
same.
the best supporting actor that year with that
Color of
role.
Money, let's be
Yeah.
honest, Color of Money, Born on the
Yeah.
4th.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there's a few there where you go, "Oh, Jesus, this guy
Yeah.
can fucking act." You
Right.
know?
Yeah. And that supporting role he has in Tropic
Mm.
Thunder is just,
Oh,
it's
magic.
yeah, it's fantastic stuff. But I think to maybe to make your works point, it's almost like Tom Cruise kind of he can act and he's
Mm,
proven he can
mm,
act. Okay. I mean, he's never
yep.
won an Oscar, but he's whether you win an Oscar or not, right? He's
Mm,
proven he can do it.
mm.
It's almost like, okay, I've proven I can do it. Now I want to do these franchises. I think maybe I think
True.
Top Gun making $1 billion. I wonder if he wants to like make Mission Impossible as big as like
Mm,
the
mm.
Marvel movies as the.
I think you're right. I think that his hunger and thirst, though, like any human, kind of outweighs the reality. Like, because do
Yeah.
you remember they were supposed to do Universal Monsters? So, like, they
Hmm.
did The Mummy, and then they
Right.
did the press release, and Johnny Depp was Invisible Man, Crow was set in as Dr. Jekyll,
Yeah.
um, and but it didn't happen.
Right.
Because, and I think it's because of COVID, really.
Right.
But
That's
I
right.
think
Yeah.
there was a whole nother landscape of films that was supposed to happen
Yeah.
in conjunction with Mission Impossible, and now Top Gun.
Yeah.
I think the thirst is bigger than the than what we're capable of physically doing in this time frame.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
But yeah, no question he can act. I felt like Hollywood dangled the carrot at him for a long time with the Academy Award because they knew if we don't give it to him, he'll keep trying and we'll get another blockbuster.
Right.
I felt like it was almost the carrot being dangled. It felt unfair a couple of times there when he didn't get it. I thought, he's been robbed,
Right. Yeah. It's interesting with that. Yeah. And it's, because we think of Oscars as being this big thing, but, I think one of the things that's great about movies, about cinema, is that there's so many different ways to judge success, I think. And so,
True.
I think that's one of the,
true.
But I think when you're an actor, you're probably like, oh, I got to get that Oscar. I got to make that happen. But
yeah, it's funny, isn't it? It's such a pressure. And it shouldn't really be. I'm sure, like when Billy Bob Thornton did Sling Blade, he wasn't thinking about the Oscar. He's thinking about that character. How do I fucking nail this?
Yeah.
How do I make an on-screen character that they've never seen? And that's why he gets the Oscar. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's got to go the other way. And I'm sure De Niro was the same. And back in the heyday, Robin Williams and Pacino and all those guys, I'm sure they were just really invested in the character. And when they popped, they were like, oh well, holy shit. Nicholson, Nicholson's without a doubt, one of my favorite actors of all time.
Yeah. Yeah. Same here. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And like you said, they just act. They're not thinking about like what they're going to get at. Yeah.
They're just doing what they do. And if something happens, even as I told you, briefly meeting Martin Kove last night, and he was saying they didn't know Karate Kid was going to be a hit. It was just another movie, and he said that it was a delight afterwards to find out, oh shit, that one popped. Oh my God, this one's global. Oh God, we're famous. And any actor, professional actors, I guess, going into any venture, not thinking about, awards.
Yeah.
It's maybe thinking about the end product, but not going too far yet, because we don't know. We don't want to be let down. You don't want to be disappointed if they set the sights too high.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? Is that I think you've got to just make the movie you want to make, and and hope it comes out well. There's it seems like there's just so many places that a movie, I don't know if fail is the right word, but it not hit the mark that you want for it. And so
absolutely.
And I think when in your case, when you're making, the kind of the low budget indie ones, if you feel like you found your audience, or you've got people that like it, or that they get what you're going for. I think that's probably the biggest thing. I remember reviewing one time, and the person who wrote it and was the lead actor in it, he was just like, wow, it was just great that somebody got it,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's sort of been the advice to all filmmakers is, if you're that passionate, you've sort of woken up in the morning, you're obsessed by it, and you've got to get it done, just do it. And if you get good press or you find an audience, then congratulations, because you didn't really know if it was going to happen. But you've got to take that risk regardless.
Yeah. Well, and maybe that's a good place to leave it here.
Yeah.
I think,
cool, man.
Again, I hope, more people discover your movies, because I really enjoyed these ones. And again, Alien Love, that's the most recent one out for people, but on Tubi, just look up Nathan Hill, you'll see Alien Love, you'll see a bunch of, Jasper, Revenge of the Gweilo, those are ones I've reviewed on the site, Lady Terror. But definitely everybody check them out. But Nate, it was great having you on. Thank you for stopping by.
Mate, it's been a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me, and we'll talk again on the next one.
Yes, I'll be happy to have you on. I'd absolutely love to talk with you about that one too. Yeah, definitely.
We'll do it. It's coming soon.
All right, excellent. I can't wait. Excellent. All right, excellent. And thank you, buddy, for listening. We'll be back soon. Bye, everyone.